Godzilla! All right.
Righty. DJ Nubis here with you on the Military Radio Podcast. Here with my special guest on the panel, Jedi Grand Velle,
Yeah.
Sci Fi Sentry, and the big bad wolf himself. John, thank you for joining me today.
No problem.
We'll be going over this video from a guy who's been getting a lot of slack on the web right now, name of Doktor Skipper. And I don't know much about him. I just know that he's got a lot of content out there, and I guess he is kind of considered edgy in terms of like his takes. But as Big Bad Will pointed out, Rob from ETM kind of went over this on his channel, I guess. But I wanted us to go through it and watch the video and kind of like give our own thoughts about what he's saying, if whether or not they're good takes or bad takes, and whether they're misinformed. But as we go through it, if you want me to stop it and pause it and discuss it, we can. I'm going to do that anyway with stuff that I want to talk about throughout the video. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Let's see. There we go. Let's get rolling right off the bat.
Follow up, bottle up, I'll pull it up, feel like Godzilla. Get out the way, Eminem! This is my video! Gojira, also known as Godzilla, is the most popular piece of Japanese media ever created. Let's just pretend anime is not a thing, okay, for like 20 minutes. Godzilla is so popular that a lot of people didn't even know that it originated in Japan, or that it's in the public domain in the United States, since Toho, the company that created Godzilla, never expected the freak lizard to get Marvelized.
Go ahead, Sentry.
He's not public domain.
I was gonna say,
correct.
It's public domain.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, I agree.
He's the only way
So they didn't renew
access is to buy rights from Toho to use it in a project. Other than that, that's as close as you'll get.
Right.
Right in the opening, homeboy's already fucking up.
I mean, Godzilla's public domain, man. Get the fuck out of here, man. I mean, I'm like,
Okay, let's see him use Godzilla in his projects, and let's see how much Toho likes it.
Yeah.
Right. All right, let's continue on.
Manipulate the copyright system like a certain company that does with all their beloved IPs.
Walt Disney.
Breaking news, Mickey Mouse is now public domain. Oh wait, never mind, just Steamboat Willie. Not even that. The name is still claimed by Disney, so the only legal way to name it is Boat Rat Drives Boat. But this free copyright for Godzilla is only in America. In Japan, our boy is still in shackles. But even in the United States, with freedom, hot dogs, gunslinging, and that one place.
Have you ever been to Ohio, sir?
No. Japan still tried to sue the red, white, and blue because, well, you miss the shots you don't take, Luka Doncic. I'm not Japanese, and I was born in 2002. The same year Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla came out, alongside Mike's new car. Does this have anything to do with Godzilla? No, it doesn't, but I'm keeping it in the video anyway. So yeah, I didn't really know anything about Godzilla for most of my life, other than its influence on American culture. I knew more about Reptar and Shelly from Frankenweenie than the real Godzilla. But then in 2014, when I was 12 playing, I don't know, GTA 5?
Oh, my N-word, huh?
The first Americanized version.
Yeah, so we already know it's not the first Americanized version of Godzilla, so he's already kind of misinformed there with that. And you know, he's clever with the way that he does his videos. Like it's kind of entertaining. But like if you're gonna do something on a topic, you might want to research a little bit better.
The simple fact that he's nothing but a fucking child, man. I'm sorry. I mean, yeah, he's a grown man, but dude, you coming out the gate right now saying that this and this and this. And it's like, you want to, yeah, like you say, Anub, it's like take a few courses in Godzilla-nese and realize what is truth and what is actually fiction. You know, I mean, man, oh my God, I'm getting riled up already.
Him being born in 2002 says a lot.
Yeah.
And the thing too is like some of the memes he does has no relevancy to the topic.
True. So I think he's kind of like doing this filibustering where he's like just trying to distract people from the topic and try to like it's like his misgivings and how he's laying out his argument. So he's like trying to like distract everybody from that.
He's not good at it.
Godzilla came out.
Right.
Yes, the first, because 1998 never happened. Jesus Christ. Fast forward to now.
Okay, so he's acknowledging that, but he just doesn't, like everyone else, doesn't apply it. But you know what though? And maybe I might have to check my own, like for you guys. So 1985, wasn't that American or was that through Toho?
No, that was Toho.
Toho
That was
first,
Toho.
and then it came to America.
Toho, but
Okay.
it was Americanized, much like how Gojira was Americanized to Godzilla King of the Monsters in 1956.
Okay.
Because it has Raymond Burr and King of the Monsters and in 1985.
Yeah.
But you really can't. You can't. I mean, you can't say really Americanized because Toho already made the movie. It's just that America had to throw in their own little 2 cents, just because even in the 80s, like for foreign movies, especially like Godzilla, they wanted to give more of a American feel, so that way, you know, people will be like, well, why is America just showing a foreign film without giving any kind of introduction as far as, you know, America and their influence and stuff like that. But no, I mean, it makes sense though. But yeah, Americanized, no. Just America put their 2 cents in. It might that's what I mean. That's what I think.
Yeah, just slap the American sticker on it.
Yeah.
2024, Japan has released a new Godzilla film starring Eminem's hit album Kamikaze.
Zombie brains make for bad sushi.
And in the States, Godzilla is now collaborating with King Kong in what looks to be a brand new Fortnite event, which isn't that much of a stretch since they were in Call of Duty, for some reason. I know 2024 just started, and we haven't had a Skipper video in a while since he was rotting away during the holidays. New year, new meal, right? We're back. Don't all clap at once. But let's go back to 2014 to examine the playing field and how we got here. Godzilla is super interesting to me. After the 2014 movie, I grew up and went to school and played video games and doodled in math books that cost a lot of money, but I didn't care because look at this drawing. Homie. But then at age 16, I was activated like the Winter Soldier to hate the 9-to-5 matrix. Look, Mom, being a brain surgeon is cool and whatever, but I want to pursue the arts, aka the...
This is like nothing that people need to know. Like, I don't understand like why he's giving us the backstory of his life.
That I was going to say that's
just literally all over the place.
It's like so much unneeded information there.
It's kind of like what Demon does with his clickbait stuff, where he kind of dodges, goes around, and then finally at the end, he finally starts spilling the crap he should have been spilling.
Right.
Epilogue to what is eventually going to be homelessness. Or a bullet to my head. So I did a film study course in high school where the teacher was the head football coach that hated his damn life. So instead of teaching anything, he put on crash course videos from YouTube where Lily Gladstone from Killers of the Flower Moon taught me film history. Thank you, Lily, for sending me down a warpath with Letterboxd. Eventually, I started learning stuff for myself in film history, okay? I was hitting the books. Books being video essays from other idiot film geeks online. Thus, I went down in a really big Godzilla rabbit hole. And it gave me a big appreciation for the creature, its
Don't fall asleep yet, Sci-Fi. We're not quite through it yet.
Try not to, man. Try not to.
impact on filmmaking, and made me reevaluate how I look at the Godzilla brand as a whole. Also, there's a big thing I need to address in this video. I kind of hate Godzilla, if we're gonna be honest.
Get the f out.
Really, dude? Come on.
Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm just saying to myself, like, dude, what is all this filler that he's doing here, man? I mean, get to the I'm sorry. I don't usually say it. Get to the goddamn point, man. I mean, what the hell are you doing, man?
He's also kind of outing himself. So he's already admitting he hates Godzilla. And I'm like, well, what is the really point of this thing? Because you're not very informed. So you're going to try to bash the character without actually doing any research on the character. So it's kind of like weird.
To make this really easy for you to understand, Godzilla has what I like to call the Jurassic Park effect. Jurassic Park is a great movie that
You do realize Godzilla's been around long before Jurassic Park, right? Like long before Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park 1993, Gojira 1954.
Yeah, do the math, you know.
No less, when did the
That's
books
cool
come
dinos-
out?
What's that?
When did the books come out?
What, Jurassic?
Yeah, like the Jurassic Park was, because
It was like around 93. Yeah.
Then yeah, still longer than Jurassic Park, Betty.
I mean, even if you want to argue some of the, early claymation dinosaur movies, they still were like after, I mean, there were some probably prior to 54, but not enough to say that was an influence on Godzilla. Like, you know what I mean? Godzilla was like its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
dinosaurs and sexy Jeff Goldblum, but the film still has heavy messaging.
Dodson, we've got Dodson here. Nobody cares.
It's a critique on corporations and Walt Disney-like figures that try to play God on the grounds of greed. They also like to suspend my Twitter account for impersonating Harrison Ford, which I didn't do. Totally.
Answer me, you black son of a bitch.
The Raptors and T-Rex are awesome, this is very true, but they aren't just there for the sake of existing. The dinosaurs have a bigger purpose to the overall film, thus making Jurassic Park still iconic to this day. It also kind of revolutionized CGI and
How is Jurassic Park iconic but Godzilla not?
Maybe he's trying to bring that to 98, since one of the big criticisms of 98 was how they, as during the one sequence, they ripped to what looks similar to the Raptor scenes.
I mean, the only thing I can gather from this is that his argument is, like with the Jurassic films, they actually have better stories, -1 not included, but better stories than most Godzilla films of the past. So like the stories are very flimsy. You've got just a lot of like monsters clashing, a lot of comic fun. So on that level, if that's his argument, then that makes a little bit of sense. But then you still have to worry about G54, G14, -1. Like these are very
84.
strong stories with Godzilla
BMK.
in them. Yeah, right.
Can I add something to that, Anubis? Also,
Yeah.
what he said about it becoming like, you know, Jurassic Park or whatever, you know, Jurassic Park has a lot of movies or whatever, but I mean, if he would just clarify if he's talking about since 54 since the beginning of Toho Godzilla, or is he talking about the Monsterverse, which the Monsterverse has a lot of movies? He's not. To me, he's just not differentiating them. You can't really say if he's talking about Godzilla and Godzilla being the longest running, universe or franchise, and then there's the Monsterverse, which is just started in 2014, and they have a few movies. It's just that's what I'm saying. Hopefully, he gets to that point. I mean, I'm not gonna.
Yeah,
totally
you're right. He might be going with that angle. He might be like focusing on America's version of Godzilla, and maybe that's his big argument here, is that he's not really touching Toho, but we'll see.
Change the landscape of film, yada yada. But Jurassic Park, yeah, the IP is now just CGI wars with Chris Pratt. I don't know what the hell a carbine rifle is gonna do to dinosaurs. I mean, Mark Wahlberg used a gun to fight metal aliens. I give up. And while still making a lot of money, because they sure as hell did that, they have like no cultural impact at all. This is what happened.
Well, not every movie has to have that. Like, in fact, you could argue that -1 does have a cultural impact, but we all know that a lot of Godzilla films are just popcorn. It's just popcorn.
They're just there for just mindless fun, to where you can just forget about everything and just have fun.
Right.
I mean,
I think even with 98, it's still just a popcorn movie. Like, it doesn't matter where we stand and whether or not it's Godzilla or not. The reality is, it was a cash grab. They knew it was a cash grab, and they did it anyway.
And Roland Emmerich didn't want to do that movie in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of excited when I saw his name attached because I loved Independence Day, but again, it's just a cash grab at that point.
That's all it is.
With Godzilla, I don't have any nostalgia for the old Godzilla movies. Yeah, I still watched them a bit when I was a kid.
The fuck?
And even rewatched them recently when I got the idea for this video. So no bias. 98% of them suck ass. Godzilla fell into...
He said no bias, and yet he already said he hates Godzilla earlier in the video.
No, he said majority of them suck ass. I would disagree with that. I mean, we've done our own.
Yeah, not only. I mean, we're saying as fans, I'm not gonna be like one of those, fucking crazed fans. Like, oh no, fuck you, dude. You gotta like Godzilla. You have to do it. No, I'm not gonna do that. I just will say that he says about not only them sucking ass, but it's just so like. And then he said he had to rewatch them all. Or he had to watch all of them again. And like, dude, well, I mean, dude, good luck if you're gonna have to watch all freaking 30 something plus of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But that's what I mean. It's already like, I mean, like I said, I don't know the guy, and I don't care for the guy, but I'm not gonna be like one of those, crazed elitist fans that's gonna be like, oh no, fuck you. You gotta like Godzilla. You gotta know the facts. You gotta write everything in detail. You gotta fucking get really with it. Like, nah, I'm not gonna do that shit.
No, I don't have a problem with people's opinions on Godzilla as far as like the movies and
Yeah, I
stuff
mean,
like
the guy
that.
has the right to have his own views and opinions, but it's like at least if you're gonna make some kind of video essay, at least try to do more research on your topic.
Exactly.
And do not show bias, because, like you say, because I'm not going to be biased, though. You already mentioned he hates Godzilla. It's like, if you're going to do anything, don't reveal whose side you're on, because then people are going to be like, well, I don't want to listen to you now. You just reveal what side you're on.
Well, I probably would have been okay with him saying, you know, I don't really care for the movies and I'm biased, but I wanted to approach this out of an objective point of view, which he hasn't done. He hasn't stated that. So,
but the thing about this is, looking at this is like, you know, you're saying what your opinion about something, but kind of not disrespect the people who are actual fans, and you know, don't throw that in their face like that. You know what I mean? Because you're making it seem like, oh, what we had was not, you know, something that we love, and it's not something that's, you know, we just have that love for it, you know. But you're gonna make it sound like, oh, we're kind of airheads in some sense of the word, you know.
Well, remember, brother. Remember my brothers, Metal Tavern, Sci-Fi Society. Motherfuckers are gonna say stupid shit whether we bitch about it or not.
True.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Can't stop
To the same trap that all successful franchises eventually fall into, Godzilla's look was more fascinating to shareholders and executives than the original intentions and creativity that made him even exist in the first place. So they spammed out Godzilla films. He's fighting bugs. He's fighting mechanized versions of himself. He's fighting three-headed dragons. He's doing shit like this. Because why the hell not? And some of the films are fun, I'll admit it, but for the most part, a lot of the legacy of Godzilla just reeks of cheaply made cash grabs. So when Godzilla turned into a cartoon for
well, see, that's not true. Like, if you're arguing America, like with 98, I can guarantee 2014, when they took the risk of going back into the Godzilla realm, they didn't know it'd be as successful as it was. I mean, obviously they thought, well, Godzilla is going to draw some people there, right. But Toho, dude, they don't make billions on these films at all. No. Like, I think isn't like -1 like the best one they've done since Shin, like in terms of financial.
Yeah, -1 exceeded 100 million.
Yeah, and that doesn't really happen a lot. I mean, and even they have admitted that it's America that kind of helped push them to get back into the Godzilla.
One friend of mine thinks what might have happened was Oppenheimer that came out over a sudden may have sparked that interest, which is why when -1 trailer came out, that's why there was probably so much hype, was because the Oppenheimer movie probably helped spark more of that interest, since it was still in that era. They got to see a different perspective.
Yeah, I was telling Kevin and my wife that that meme with Oppenheimer at the end with the monologue and Godzilla, that should have been in the movie. That would have been the best crossover ever.
you just see Godzilla. What you get is just the screen black saying Godzilla just roaring, and that's the ending.
Yeah, that would have been sweet.
For kids, a lot of adults stopped caring.
What is this shit?
So then the cycle reset, and this time Goji went to America.
Wow. You stopped caring. The rest of us didn't.
America, where the same thing happened again. We got a serious Godzilla, and people complained that it was too serious with not enough Godzilla, so the franchise became Looney Tunes. And the sequel somehow had worse human characters, and then people got annoyed with Millie Bobby Brown, the fat kid from Deadpool, and Alfred from Atlanta spilling water on a computer to fry Mechagodzilla's motherboard to save the day. And this made some people not really like Godzilla that much anymore.
That's not true either. It's true that people complained about certain aspects of each movie. There are people that hate G14, then there are people that hate King of Monsters, people that generally love Godzilla and Kong because all it is just monster fighting. So you got people all over the kaiju spectrum that like all different movies.
Sorry.
And I will say this, one thing he is right on is when it came to King of Monsters and versus Kong, we kind of got more or less interesting human characters.
And he forgot to mention, how much Godzilla King of the Monsters made when it was released on Blu-ray, DVD, and 4K.
Yeah,
because that's another thing we went over too. Is the MonsterVerse hasn't been as successful in theaters, but when it came to DVD sales and toys, they've been going through the roof.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, but this is kind of, even before the MonsterVerse. I mean, it was still, you still had Godzilla fans like they like certain eras of Godzilla. Like I like the hero anti-hero version more than the villain type, and then there's the opposite. There are people that like the villain more
Yeah, I
than.
used to always like hero. I used to like anti-hero because I watched like Final Wars 2000, the Heisei era. And then when I was able to, so when I first watched Godzilla, it was Godzilla versus Gigan versus Mechagodzilla. So I also grew up with the hero era. But as I grew up, I started liking the serious Godzilla because I started getting into more darker movies like the original Predator, Batman, Punisher. So when -1 came in GMK, so when -1 came out, I went, all right, I'm gonna dig this because I like films that can be dark, and plus it showed that they were gonna try to get them back to being horrifying.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, let's go for it.
Well, just give me a second, Lewis. I want to say this, man.
Sure.
Now, I would give this guy maybe a little bit more, maybe about 1%, maybe 2% credit if he would be talking about the Reiwa era and the animated Polygon trilogy of Godzilla. Now, as much as I wanted to love those movies, I did think Godzilla looked pretty cool. Now, if he would have mentioned that and did his research on that, then he can bash that kind of fucking garbage. But then if he's bashing all this shit about the Showa and, you know, Godzilla versus Kong 2014 was serious, and then they went, you know, Looney Tunes, and then he forgot, and then if hopefully he mentions Godzilla versus Kong was very successful, and I haven't heard him mention that either. So
yeah, and it's funny because, you know, Neko and I were talking with Lambert from the Entertainment Headquarters last night about the Monarch series, and, you know, I'm sitting there trying to explain that, you know, that's a very serious series. It kind of plays off of G14, and so, like, you're not going to get a whole lot of monster mash in that, but it gives you the backstories, and some people enjoy that. I enjoyed it. So I think that right now with the MonsterVerse, they're just kind of giving you a little bit of everything. We've already seen the trailers for Empire, and it's almost like Marvel now. So, I mean, either you're going to come out of it liking or disliking it, but I think we've all said that we're going to eat it up regardless because we're Godzilla fans. So we're one way or the other, we're going to like it, but where it falls on our favorites list, who knows? You know what I mean? So,
and I'm going to say this too. So with Legacy of Monsters, it was top on Apple TV Plus's charts for a good few weeks. Like it was #1 for a good few weeks.
Yeah, and I thought it was well done. I mean, I'm hoping that there's more seasons of that because I think if they get enough interest and they get enough finances behind it, like, you know, depending on the interest of the kaiju universe, like the fans, like if they can get enough support, you know, I'd love to see a season that kind of fills in the gaps for each movie because that'd be amazing.
Yeah, I read on an article that like the guy who's behind it or one of the guys behind this series, I think he mentioned like it'll all depend on probably the success of Godzilla and Kong. So if it does well, they may be due for another season if it does well enough.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
And now Japan has gone back to reset that cycle, and from ground zero, we got a breath of fresh air again. So yeah, Godzilla is in a constant battle of balance between being really serious and being really stupid, but the good is really good, so let's talk about that good. It's 1925. Some dude named Harry O'Hoyt made a stop-motion dinosaur movie called The Lost World, not the one with sexy Jeff Goldblum and people getting smoked in tall grass, but rather stop-motion clay, which leads us to 1933, where Harry inspired a guy named Willis O'Brien to make a stop-motion movie titled King Kong that had a giant monkey going apeshit. This then inspired a Japanese special effects director named Eiji Tsuburaya, who ended up being the co-creator of Godzilla, which means America was 2001's Jay-Z the blueprint to Japan. Eiji Tsuburaya was making movies until he met this guy named Ishiro Honda, and they both said, yo, what's up? You like movies? I like movies. But then the world started going beast mode, and then boom! Imperial Japan started going beast mode, and then ring ring, yeah, Honda, congratulations, you just been drafted to the Imperial Japanese Army. Pack your stuff, we go at midnight. And during this war, a massive toll was taken on young Honda. Then Honda came home, instantly went back to the grind and started making some movies. World War II was still going beast mode, so filmmakers had to stop making movies and instead were cranking out good old-fashioned propaganda. In the States, even Walt and Boat Rat Drives Boat were doing this as well. A Japan studio formed for this propaganda named Toho Studios that was showing all the cool tanks and guns. Look, they even put Call of Duty's World at War menu theme on the screen. The Mustache Man was going crazy in World War II as well, affecting the Lego Man that you can learn about in this video after after you finish this one. Harrison Ford was still fighting Nazis, but this time on a train with a full CGI face. And Japan attacked Hawaii. Not just Hawaii, but Pearl Harbor. Japan was hyped. They threw a little party even, thinking that they just did something crazy. Then Toho Studios made a fake propaganda film about the bombing that looked so real it even convinced the USA that it was real footage. America wasn't having it. Chester, call in the big guns. Ring ring, yeah, hello Robert J. Oppenheimer. You're needed immediately. He then smoked his little pipe, put on his little hat, and played a game of telephone with his communist friends. Allegedly. Allegedly. He got tasked to make a big bomb codenamed Operation Manhattan. He then went to Los Alamos, New Mexico to...
And now, he did some research, and he did say, in Yashiro Honda and Toho Studios did make a war film that looked so real that the USA saw it and thought that it was all just miniatures, and they thought it was real, and they contacted Japan and said, "Hey, why are you making war films?" They say, "It wasn't. We made a film that is just out of miniatures." That's true.
Yeah.
I
mean,
that I didn't know. So that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, really? No, but he got his facts about, like I say, with the Lost World 25, and then, like I say, with King Kong inspiring Shiro Honda, but now he inspired Super Raya.
Yeah.
See, that catalyst led from that to Godzilla, and the fact that he did get that right, it's like, okay, getting your facts straight. I mean, play on it a little bit, but stay with that in that realm, because it's like, dude, you're kind of like back and forth with this now, See, this is what's getting me interested, getting me kind of caught up in terms of interest. And it's like, yeah, those facts are there because I know these facts myself. I'm pretty sure all of us know it too, So that is
that's why I wanted us. That's why I wanted us to watch this, because like I didn't want to watch it ahead of time. I wanted to react to it live with you also. That's why we're doing it.
Yeah, and Ishiro Honda did serve. He was drafted into the Japanese military. Yeah,
that's something I didn't know either.
Yeah.
Somehow, the guy who cooks in New Mexico got called Heisenberg instead of Oppenheimer. Heisenberg was a Nazi scientist in Germany, by the way. What the fuck, AMC? And in between adultery and literally being me, he finished the bomb, took it to
I just gotta say, Florence Pugh, yum yum.
Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and turned that bitch into Fallout 3, with the only sole survivor being Wolverine. Japan took the L and surrendered. Truman kicked up his feet and ate sushi off his stomach like me after editing 30 seconds of this video, and Japan was now under new management. In 1946, Honda came back to Japan to see that Hiroshima was decimated, and then went back to making movies. America had control over Japan, and said no more propaganda, no more emperor, and worst of all, women can now vote. Alright, who put that in the script? Was it you? Don't fucking lie to me. 1953, no more strict laws about propaganda. Happy, happy Japan. 1954. America started trolling and the fuck does that mean? America started trolling and did a nuclear test on their hydrogen bomb in the Pacific. The bomb was much bigger than the scientists expected, so the radiation caught up to a Japanese boat named the Lucky Dragon No. 5, which killed all the crew.
All right, that's true. That's true. There's another fact.
That was used in the beginning of 1954.
Yep.
That's when they were trying to kill Godzilla, right?
No, that was like at the very beginning. Oh, I see what you were doing. Damn it!
I'm just starting my own propaganda. Come on now.
Yeah.
By radiation, and the fish market was completely fucked. Poor Japan, we know you love ethical fishing. We know you love ethical fishing. Yeah, Japan was pissed, and rightfully so. And this controversy pushed Toho producer Tomoyaki Tanaka to want to make a political film related to nuclear war. Like King Kong, America was once again the blueprint, with The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, about a monster attacking New York after nuclear testing. Tanaka wanted to do the same thing, so...
Yeah, go ahead, John. Let's see it. Go ahead.
Might as well, since he mentioned it.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's my boy. I'm still waiting on that. I'm still waiting on that to get to my house.
Here it is.
Dude, he said Tamayuki. I was like, dude, it's like Tomoyuki Tanaka. I was like, oh my god, like, yeah.
Not everybody's gonna get that right.
Yeah, I can't blame him there, man. I have a hard time pronouncing anything. So
I mean, Gojira is hard to pronounce for most people. That's why they changed it to Godzilla.
Godzilla was made. There's a good video by Big Action Bill about the history of 1954 Godzilla in the description, check that out. But the original Godzilla is not like the beast from 20,000 Fathoms. Honda didn't want to make the film to get cheers and applause. It wasn't a film that was made to be a good laugh or to be an entertaining blockbuster. Quite the opposite, actually. Gojira was made with the intention of invoking fear and anxiety while also raising awareness about the looming threat of nuclear war that is still present in today's discussion. Hell, one of the most popular films in 2022 was Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, with the exact same intentions and messaging as 19...
Is it 22 or 23?
23, man.
23.
It's 23.
Yeah, because it came out just like close to the end of the year.
Last year.
Did he take a nap and just skip 2023 and went, or did he end up rewinding himself?
All of that.
It's kind of nitpicky, but I mean, really, come on, dude.
1954's Gojira. Even the main scientist character in Gojira was based off of Robert J. Oppenheimer, who was regretful of the atomic bomb's creation and spent his...
No, that wasn't. I mean, anybody could have. Yeah, and anybody could have come up with, oh no, it was this scientist, it was that scientist. Serizawa was based off of his own character.
He was basically just written just straight out of imagination.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, even if he was somewhat influenced because of the oxygen destroyer, I think that, you know, he was his own character though.
Yeah, influence, but he's already putting like, oh, it was based off of him. It's like, no, man. Like,
yeah. There's no facts on that.
Yeah. Germany, fucking everybody at that point was already fucking around with atomic bombs and all that shit. So.
Oh shit! Even Oppenheimer touched on that. Everyone else is doing it. That's why they were trying to rush to get it out first.
Yep.
Life blackballing the hydrogen bomb, which the testing of that hydrogen bomb affected Japan and got Gojira made in the first place. Godzilla is used throughout the film in strategic ways, representing chaos to human characters rather than being used as a sole spectacle, which benefits the film since that level of restraint makes Godzilla a spectacle anyway by default. His destruction of Japan is to represent the atomic bomb used on both Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and it's sad and scary, and this is elevated by the human characters that are portrayed to be survivors of a tragedy. The ending of the film even has this Oppenheimer-like character sacrifice himself to kill Godzilla with his own made atomic creation, and the reason he sacrifices himself is for the sake of humanity, making sure that the knowledge to the chaotic power that kills Godzilla dies with him. Even Godzilla's death in the film is not celebrated and cheered. His death is instead seen as a death that never needed to happen. The film instead uses its conclusion to say this, rather than celebrating. Gojira was still made on thin ice due to the hot tensions with the US, so the US is never blamed for Godzilla's creation in the film, but even without the politics of Japan and the US, Gojira is still objectively a war film that provoked a lot of discussion and thought. For 1954, the film is serious and gritty. The human characters serve a purpose, Godzilla serves a purpose. It pushes so many standards in the special effects world as well. It
should be noted too that in -1, like, despite the fact that they do acknowledge that, you know, the nuclear testing or the atomic bomb testing of the U.S. helped mutate Godzilla, they didn't ever like sit there and say, yeah, it's America's fault that this happened. Like, they never pointed to that, so they weren't trying to be nasty about it or, you know, anti-America about it. Like, they really handled the storyline. They handled really well all together with that stuff.
Well, they couldn't. Well, it's not only that. Like, Japan and U.S. were already, you know, like, it's like the U.S. was already could sanction Japan after the surrender, and then, you know, just like how he was saying about, like, just the fact that you know that it was based off of what happened with Hiroshima and all that, but the movie Ishiro Honda, Iji Tsuburaya, they made sure not to like really ruffle feathers, you know, and try to like literally like saying this was was caused by the U.S. and the U.S. did this to us.
I'll add this, so for those that don't know that are watching, so what we see now as Godzilla was not what was originally intended. The original, because I'm sure you guys do, the original concept art for Godzilla was an octopus with a mushroom cloud-shaped head. But then because they were being occupied by the U.S. at that point, they went, that's too much on the nose. We're going to have to change that a bit. But then also fast forward to -1, the good thing is, as you were mentioning, how they didn't really try to go, oh, USA is a bunch of assholes and stuff like that. They at least still made sure, like Like, they made sure it wasn't U.S. they weren't angry at. It was the government they were angry at. Because it showed, like, hey, the U.S. did do this, but we literally left them no choice. Which showed they took responsibility and that the citizens themselves knew who they were truly angry at. And it wasn't U.S., it was their own government who was willing to kill them.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
A masterpiece in world cinema and is not talked about enough due to it getting censored by the United States, which we'll talk about later. 1954 Gojira is also why I don't like it when Godzilla is an action prop. It just feels like boat rat drives boat to me. Since I see
Yeah, but the problem is that Toho was the first one to make Godzilla an action prop, because once they started going into the actual kaiju battles and making it kind of goofy, America is just playing off of that idea. You know,
even Adam Wingard stated the show era is his favorite era, and we can see that in this upcoming move. And even the last one, we can see he loved that one much more than the other eras.
Yeah.
And why? And in America, I'm sorry, but in America, why, man? This dude should already know, like, bro. If you know about Godzilla since the Showa era when it was serious, and then it started including other monsters from the same studios, from the same franchise, then that's what made it interesting and more interesting. And especially he went towards the hero or anti-hero, and then anti-hero, and then hero, and then he has the dude doesn't understand, bro. Like, that's why a lot of people love Godzilla because of the fact that they added other kaijus and Godzilla became anti-hero, superhero, and then now back to that's the thing about Godzilla. He's so diverse that we can always see the serious Godzilla, the goofy Godzilla, the anti-hero Godzilla, or the hero Godzilla.
Right. And Godzilla's origins can change on the fly. Like, he's literally said as the most versatile character because it's like in the anime trilogy. He was basically resulted from plant life as the end result of natural selection. Then we can see in Singular Point, he's like a monster from a different dimension that comes after every century, after some things are met. Then we see in others, he's literally a dinosaur who is mutated by the nuclear bomb. And then others, like in the Monsterverse, he's seen as this ancient being that's been living off of radiation for millions, possibly billions of years.
Right.
Yeah. And depending on which film that you actually watch the first time in your life, it gives you that a privilege to say, look at, because like I say, for me, it was the Godzilla versus Megalon. Of course, it still is outlandish, but it planted that seed for me to say, okay, let me see the films that started it all, which was the dark tone of the 54 one, and led up to all the other ones, and let you know, like, oh, there's more to this film. There's more to this character than just that so-called aspect of him being a hero. Yes, he started as kind of a villain in a sense, or a symbolism. But as time progressed, as Sci-Fi mentioned, you have all these different characters, culminating in this particular universe, and that led to more and more to say, these kaiju fights and more kind of outlandish, ideas of what's going to be portrayed by this character. And the thing is, that is the thing that helps that longevity for this character in the first place. I mean, when we got the 98 version, I was hyped as hell about it. I was hyped, but unfortunately, it depends on your point of view. You either liked it or disliked it. But once fast forward to 2014, that interjected saying, okay, America got it in a sense right, but still, it's still a fun thing to know that, okay, somebody in America say, well, we're going to make this better than what it was when the 98 version came out. So the thing about Godzilla is that it is always going to be a sample of knowing that if you like this character, great. If you don't like this character, that's your opinion. You have the right to do that. But just know that he's going to be serious, but he can be fun too. And that's just the joy of knowing that we can enjoy these things no matter what kind of tone he takes.
So I will add on to what Jedi was saying. So I remember you telling me a while back that what made Toho decide to make Godzilla a good guy was they saw how popular Gamera was because of the children aspect. And that's when I learned from watching Rob from ETN, Fat Samurai Guy, and a bunch of other streamers what I've learned is what sells at the box office are movies where families can see them, meaning husband and wife, their sons and daughters, or even grandkids and grandparents. Like films that are more fun for the family, set more at the box office than one where only adults can go see it, except for a few exceptions like Deadpool and the Joker.
Right.
Character more as a man versus nature rather than fighting toys for children. This is why Godzilla 2014 by Gareth Edwards is the best version of Godzilla in the States. But even then, Godzilla doesn't really work in the United States. 2014 Godzilla is the most grounded of the MonsterVerse films, having the most restraint while using Godzilla on frame in unique ways. It's still one of the best looking Godzilla films due to the directing by Gareth Edwards that relies a ton on perspective shots.
I would still kind of argue it's still a bit dark. It is good looking, but it does have a lot of dark moments. It's hard to see things, and that's always kind of been one of my nitpicks about it.
Sentiment was even kept 9.
What's that?
I said, yeah, definitely. There were times when I watched it in the theater opening weekend where there were parts where I couldn't see except for the monsters. Like when it came to the human characters,
that was some of the arguments with King of the Monsters. People said too. That's why when they did Godzilla and Kong, everything, most of it was in daylight. So.
And then if they did at night, they did in Hong Kong because of the lighting.
Right. Yep.
Years later in a spin-off show called Monarch that treated 2014 Godzilla the same way, even with it being abandoned in later films to a different visual style. Before even getting the reveal of Godzilla in 2014, you could feel his scale. While being smaller than both his King of the Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong variations, he feels the most massive in this movie. Even for the antagonist Mutos, perspective shots are still filmed from the human perspective, making the creatures scale massively. It makes the monsters feel like real threats in the human world. And seeing the monsters from the eyes of kids on a bus, Marines on a Halo jump, or a shot from the evacuation center makes this obvious fiction feel grounded. 2014 Godzilla is really good on this front, with a lot of homages to the filming of 1954's Gojira, before the direction became really stylized. Since average moviegoers didn't like barely seeing the monsters, with human characters taking most of the screen time, and when they did see the monsters it was really dark. But even with the more stylish change later, the human characters ended up being worse somehow, giving them more importance than shitty plot lines. But 2014's human problem has a lot to do with how Godzilla is structured and how it being in the US hinders its storytelling. American Godzilla as a whole is an oxymoron thing to begin with. A thing made to represent America's atomic bomb in Japan is now being used for American heroism. So because of this, you can't
But it's not just American heroism. Again, like here's where his problem is that Toho had already been making Godzilla a hero even in their own universe. So it's not, even if America's using some of those ideas, it's not like really we're doing it out of character from what we've seen in the past with Godzilla. This isn't anything new. Now, initially when G14 got released, I thought it was going to be another one of where he was just a villain. And then when it came back, you know, when another trailer came in and I finally saw it, then you realize that he's actually playing an anti-hero in that one. So that was nice because it helped set up the rest of the universe.
Yeah, I remember when I first saw the trailer, I'm thinking they're probably gonna have Godzilla killed off in this. And then when eventually I found out that there were monsters involved, I went, okay, this could end with them all dying or something. But I mean, when I got out of the theater, I was pumped just to see that he made it out. I mean, it had a good ending.
The thing is, like, even if he's coming at from an angle like, well, America's trying to cash in on a character from Toho, like in some ways they are, but they also have to have permission from Toho to do it, and they also have the support from Toho to do it. So it's not like they're doing something that's not being asked of. Like Toho's been 100% behind Legendary with all this. So yeah,
they've been loving every second of it.
Yeah.
I mean, even Yamazaki, the Godzilla -1 director, he went to see this new movie coming out, and he has been praising it nonstop.
Yeah. Yep.
Really get that much depth with Godzilla, since he's the protagonist ally to the American military. The US doesn't have the same history of catastrophe as Japan did with the atomic bomb, and America is also obsessed with patriotism. So instead of making Godzilla an allegory for the consequences of mankind's actions, or have a much larger depth of Godzilla being a force of nature against the United States, he's now instead Superman, where he gets recontextualized to be Superman, which is hilarious when you rewatch 2014's Godzilla with this perspective after watching Japanese Godzilla films. First off, that hydrogen bomb test that destroyed the Lucky Dragon 5, which got the 1954 movie made in the first place? Well, now the history has changed, and the hydrogen bomb was used to attack Godzilla on that test drop to protect the greater mankind, and it accidentally made him bigger. And after being threatened by this walking nuke and realizing there's nothing the US could do about it, it's now going to be the savior to America against the Japanese threat that was forced out of hiding by humanity that then attacks Hawaii, where then the Japanese threat gets killed by a walking nuke that goes down in a heroic sacrifice, and then he decides he's got one more in him, so he gets up and everyone claps for him as fighter jets fly by, saving the day as he goes back into the water. Take in mind, like, thousands of people have probably died to Godzilla, and by the looks of it, evacuation seems to be terrible. It's funny when watching it because at first Godzilla isn't even the main focus of this Godzilla movie. It's this Japanese threat that Walter White was warning everyone about, and then Godzilla only comes on screen to handle business.
That's a bit disingenuous. I hate the way that he probably like tries to paraphrase this. Like, it's not like Japan bad. Like, that's just where it happened to originate. They were living in Japan. They were working on nuclear sites, and it just happened to be where the Mutos were. But like kaiju, after if you watch the films over a period of time, they're all over the world.
Mhm.
So once Ghidra gets control of everything and calls out the call, like, they're all coming up and they're all destroying every freaking country. Like, it's not just America, it's not just Japan. Like, they're destroying everything.
It's Germany because that's where Methuselah was seen right south, and there's Brazil where we see Behemoth, and then there's Scylla. I forget where she came out from.
Right.
I mean, also like he kind of just said, like, he just literally said that he just mentioned that the Mutos were just Japanese monsters. I'm like, no, the reference is that Godzilla was always Japanese, even in the American version, because where did Godzilla pop up from? I know that the Monarch Legacy of Monsters kind of hinted out there that Godzilla was the one that swam towards the Lucky 7, bomb or whatever, would make Godzilla stronger, bigger, but that it's I don't know. I mean, it kind of makes me think that Godzilla was always referenced as Japanese even since 2014. So he's already. I don't know why he's trying to say, oh, Japanese monsters and Godzilla. So Godzilla's a Japanese monster, and Mutos are Japanese monsters. So they're both Japanese monsters. That's where I'm like, kind of like, that's where my mind is going. Like, what the fuck is he trying to say?
And that's the other thing too, is like, we know that Godzilla and Kong are both Earth defenders, so they're not protecting any particular one country. Like, it's not, Godzilla's not just pro-American. He just happened to be like, it's an American film. So
Godzilla's
they're not really going to
pro-Earth.
take everything and like move it over to Tokyo. I mean, they could if they wanted to, but the reality is it's an American film. So
Yeah,
the second thing is like, what was I going to say? I forgot. So go ahead, John. Sorry, I cut you off.
I said I think it's because they want to differentiate. They don't want to keep going to Japan. Plus, I also heard it could not be true that Toho had like, hey, don't have them do battles in Japan or something. Probably didn't differentiate or other stuff. I don't remember hearing it somewhere. It kind of caught me off guard. And
Well, and not only that, but it costs too. But then, like, you have to go fast forward to Godzilla and Kong. There's Simmons and his Apex. They're doing work in Tokyo, which calls Godzilla there. So it's not like he went to go destroy Tokyo because he hates Tokyo. He's going there for a purpose. Now, if you want to try to blame the American version of Apex as being the reason, well, you can, but it doesn't take away the fact that they're not in America. If he was protecting Americans, he wouldn't care. Like, he's pissed off about the orca and the
I know you Godzilla walking around yelling USA like that one kid, like that one giant monster that looks like Godzilla in the Marvel comics.
Yeah.
And you know what? He didn't even mention that, which is funny. Like, he probably actually thinks that Janjira is a real freaking part of Japan, which is not. Janjira was actually a fictional part of Japan.
Yeah. That's crazy, man.
And when he's attacked by the US military, at first he doesn't even retaliate or go beast mode. This dude is only hyper-focused on destroying this Japanese threat and shares this sparkle with the main character where they save each other. It's quite beautiful, actually, how much Godzilla cares about the whole...
It's not a Japanese threat, dude.
First off, Godzilla doesn't care about humanity.
He has to go back and watch it because The male is born in Japan, but the female is in America.
Mm-hmm.
They're not both from Japan. He's stupid. He's making a terrible fucking
And they were,
comment.
yeah, and they were found, and the female was found in the Philippines. She was,
Yeah,
but she was in the Philippines.
Yeah,
you know?
she was
So,
born out of the caucus, from the member of the Godzilla species.
Dagon, yeah, Daigon. He was
Actually, that got
yeah,
retconned.
yeah.
The world. No, he just cares about the US because when he goes to China, even that shit gets absolutely decimated in his ego fight with the gorilla. Making Godzilla Superman is strange. And later in the Monsterverse, they try to add depth to this. Like, look, he actually killed a bus full of children, and this company called Monarch is really shady with documentation.
Well, all the
You don't
monsters
take
kill people.
Luka Doncic.
You know what I'm saying? They all kill. Shit, I lost my spot.
Okay.
But they all fucking do this. All the kaiju have killed people. Like, it's not just,
I mean,
Americans
Kong's
dying and
killed
everything
people.
else.
I mean, Kong's
Did he
killed
not
people.
watch King of the Monsters? Like, if you look at what's going on around with the storms and everything, like the entire fucking country is in shambles.
And
It's a
even
mess.
Kong killed people in Godzilla vs. Kong and Kong Skull Island, whether it was intentional or not intentional.
Right. Yeah, Kong was part of the fight in Tokyo. Why isn't he taking blame?
Yeah, not only that, but I mean, I remember the scene in Tasman Sea when he literally picked up a plane that was getting ready to take off that had a pilot in it. Kong knew there was a pilot in it, and he still threw it at Godzilla anyway.
Right. Yeah, I know, right?
Because, I mean, because if Kong can see
Kong is
Gia,
anti-American.
Yeah, if Kong can see Gia, he could see the pilot inside that jet. He knew what he was doing.
And he killed the Simmons' daughter. He looked right at her and said, yep, crush, you're done.
He wanted to make sure Gia wasn't in there.
But the thing about that is when he killed, I mean, you got to remember, she was down on the ground and he knew that she was shady. So when she said, no, it's like, fuck you, bitch. It's done.
Oh, I don't feel bad for it, but there's
Yeah, I
no
don't feel
like
bad.
allegiance to anybody.
Oh, no,
It's
I
like,
don't feel bad for that at all. I mean, not to say that I want to say it, but she deserved that shit.
I'm right there with you. She deserved that shit.
You know?
Dump the monkey. Dump your own ass.
Absolutely decimated in his ego fight with the gorilla. Making Godzilla Superman is strange. And later in the Monsterverse, they try to add depth to this. Like, look, he actually killed a bus full of children, and this company called Monarch is really shady with documentation and control, and the whole world is still full of PTSD, which is cool at first, but then you remember this is the same guy in the same world where he teamed up with a monkey to fight a robot version of him that was made by a three-headed dragon that got defeated because water was spilt on the computer, and then Godzilla and the monkey are teaming up to fight more monkeys, and now there's a baby monkey, and now he's pinking in Fortnite. Yeah, it's over. American Godzilla doesn't really stand for anything. Even in the 2014 film, the human characters are just a guy we follow around and his family. The United States military is skeptical at first of Godzilla's involvement, but then they just accept that he is the only hero capable of stopping the Mutos, and all is fine. There's no discussion or nuance about anything in the world. The Mutos that were awakened.
It's not really meant to be taken quite that seriously, dude. Even in -1, with the story being as good as it is, the story is more about the people. It's not really about Godzilla. So Godzilla is just a backdrop in -1. I hate that he's doing this. Like, these movies are meant to be popcorn fun. People aren't really going to go there to be bored. They're not going to do it.
I mean, Godzilla was there as just kind of like when he was going to be most effective for the character in the scene.
Right. And I mean, you can argue that the writing for these movies in terms of character development is not very good, but I didn't expect it to be like, and again, like if it takes -1 to kind of show American writers how to fucking do it, then great. But they're going to kind of do it their own way. It is what it is. Like, it's just how different it is.
I mean, it's hard. I mean, to do a giant monster movie, like say if it's a solo giant monster, then America could probably pull off doing a very serious one. But when it involves monsters fighting each other, that's where the challenge comes. Because now it's like you got to make sure the monster has a very believable origin to where it's somewhat realistic.
I'm sorry, John. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, you're fine.
I was just gonna say that Pacific Rim is a great interpretation for kaiju, and there's a lot of other movies, American movies that that are monster movies that are good. But it's like Anubis was saying, man. This is the formula that Legendary and Warner Brothers the MonsterVerse. That's the direction they wanted to go. And regardless of I'll just say this: he's entitled to his opinion, and whatever. I don't give a shit about his opinion, honestly. But I'm just saying that the things that he's saying about MonsterVerse, it's like regardless of how the movies were, it's like he's gonna keep saying it, saying good things, saying bad things about it. So I'm like, dude, if you're gonna really put information on what you think about these movies, man, watch them, do the research, even take notes if you have to. But you just watching it and going with your own perception doesn't make any sense. For real kaiju fans like us, Anubis love 2019. I like 2019. We all like 2019, but and then he's not mentioning nothing about the success about Godzilla versus Kong, regardless of how the characters were really kind of iffy about it. But I mean, that's what I mean. I'll just leave it there, bro. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
You're
That's
fine.
exactly how I feel. Like, it's just ridiculous. Like,
But I will say this.
like, it's okay to have opinions, but when you're making an opinion that's really kind of based in nothing, so his idea that Godzilla somehow represents America, it's stupid.
I was gonna.
If Godzilla 14 was made in Japan, it would be in Japan. It would not be in America. So it's only because of where it's being shot. -1 was not an American movie.
Nope.
So where's his complaint about Japan having it in Japan? Like, it just doesn't make no sense. There's no consistency about it. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
Yeah, what I was gonna say is, so it's very challenging to do multiple giant monsters one movie and have it be taken seriously, because it's mainly for families to have fun and escape reality. So so it's very hard to have compelling human characters, because at that point people are coming there to see the monsters fight. They're coming to see monsters on the big screen. So if we're gonna have human characters that could be compelling and great, like what we had in -1, they have to really write them well to where they can keep interest while the monsters are off screen.
Yeah.
And because even Takashi Yamazaki, he mentioned in an interview recently I shared earlier this week that he's actually interested in a sequel with Godzilla fighting another monster, because he said he's game to take on a challenge of having two giant monsters fight and still having the film be serious.
Yeah, I told him on Twitter. I follow him on Twitter. I said, if you're gonna do one, do Godzilla Raids again and get Anguirus in there. Anguirus is due to be a reappearance.
I'd say Anguirus Rodan is one of those monsters, because then it could still be grounded and still be taken seriously. Whereas if you get like a door in there and stuff like that, then seriousness is gonna go out the window.
Right. Yeah, no, that's great points.
And are instantly vilified without any nuance either. These things were forced to wake up, and all they wanted to do was produce and have kids, but their children were blown up by Quicksilver. Then
that's because they're parasitic and they're actually not Earth protectors. So if you watched G14, which he claims to be a great movie in his opinion, the beginning of it shows where it looked like it was an old Godzilla skeletal remains that had been consumed by these parasitic creatures, what are mutos. So he's not really paying attention to the details. He can sit there and say all day G14 is the best of the series, which is fine, but then you're making misrepresentations of like, oh, we should feel bad for the mutos. No, there's a reason why Godzilla comes there. There's a reason why Serizawa says he's here to balance everything, so let him fight. There's a reason for that.
Let me just add also, Anubis, that I will say from Godzilla versus Kong, Rebecca Hall's character, which is connected to Kong and Gia, she was the most interesting, in my opinion, in those films, because she was, to me, the most grounded, and having the connection with Gia, and she didn't overact, but yet she was still, like, to me, just she was the most well-rounded one. I mean, it was still a very freaking campy, sci-fi popcorn flick, but to me, she was just the more grounded character.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
That's the other thing, real quick. The other thing is, when you go to take a kid, like, I don't have kids, but I took my nephew to Jurassic Park a long time ago, and he had a hard time after about 30 minutes sitting still. He was too young, but he wanted to go because he likes dinosaurs. Now, if you have kids that are old enough to sit still for a period of time, you tell me, which one are they going to be more interested in, Godzilla versus Kong or -1?
Probably
Godzilla versus Kong.
versus Kong.
Godzilla
Yeah,
versus
I'd
Kong.
say -1.
because it's 90% monster fighting. That's what he wants.
Yeah.
Kids
Yeah.
are not going to sit still for -1 because it's too much of a deep story for them to really understand at that level. So that's why it's more of a mature film, and that's why it's different. That's why America does certain things the way they do, because they want to draw in audiences and they want to get kids out there. I think Walter pointed to about the family. You want families there. So that's how they design their movies.
But I kind of add this, Nubis, is the fact that with these kind of films, you got to have that kind of balance. You got to have that sense of, okay, you got something for the adults, but you got to definitely have something for the kids. And it's almost like something like Star Wars. Star Wars, when I saw this, I'm pretty sure you saw it back in '77. The simple fact is it had, very interesting characters, but it had a lot of action too. But it was a balance of that, and like I say, as you say, you took your nephew, he was, like you say, like 5 or 6 years old. Yeah, he's not going to just want to sit all this time, listen to the adults talk about some blah, blah, blah kind of stuff. He wants to see these dinosaurs. He wants to see these things on screen,
Yeah, as a little kid, I didn't want to hear about no chaos theory.
Mm-hmm.
All three of us were like that. I bet all three of us, me and Nubis and Walter, because of our age, I didn't, when I was watching Godzilla movies, I didn't want to freaking watch. I would fast forward that shit. I don't want to hear the human characters. I'm like, look, I'll go Godzilla Rodan, and I would specifically go to each part where especially when I saw Ghidorah and my parents recorded it for me, I never stopped watching that movie, so I already knew where to fast forward, where to stop, where to fast forward, where to stop. Yeah, exactly. Because but Nubis has a point. Like I couldn't stand the freaking human characters when I was younger. Yeah. So I was
I want to go off of what Sci-Fi was saying on Eileen Andrews.
Yeah, there you go.
I agree with you that she's probably the most interesting character because Alexander Skarsgård, he mentioned Nathan Lynn. He goes, he's not like your masculine character. He's not like the most macho and all of this, yada, yada. So it just felt like he was being put in there to kind of force some kind of agenda with how Skarsgård was explaining the character. I went, oh, please, why? But yeah, I liked Eileen Andrews. I thought she was very interesting. And then the people on Team Godzilla's side, I went, okay, why is it a bunch of kids in the dark going around the world?
Yeah, I mean, the story's not very well written, but at the point where, because they were trying to find that balance, as Walter pointed to. You had King of the Monsters. Everyone's like, too much character. So then we switch over to Godzilla and Kong, and there's like not enough character, and like that was sort of my problem. Like, okay, you got all the monster action, but this story sucked ass, dude. It was bad.
See, but Emma, I'm sorry, bro. I'm just gonna add on what you said. Emma Russell was, to me, very interesting until the whole plot twist on her freaking actually going to Jonah, going to the eco-terrorist and having that, going behind the back of her husband and say, no, I'm the one that went to him. And that, I mean, everything was interesting aside from even Millie Bobby Brown's character. When the movie was first starting and her doing the orca and then being proud of it, and then the whole thing with Mothra when she was still she was still a larvae, I thought she was interesting until that shit happened in our Antarctica when she pulled the whole 360 shit. I'm just saying, that's my opinion though.
Yeah.
Sorry, bro. I didn't mean to cut you off. My bad, bro.
Oh, you're good. You're good. That's what we're here for.
Parents were murdered by Godzilla and everyone still claps in the end, even though everything's still in shambles and a shitload of people died. This is drastically different from the 1954 version, where Godzilla is treated as a victim, even after he terrorizes and kills a bunch of innocent Japanese people. And instead of clapping when the threat is gone, the audience is instead reminded that Godzilla never needed to happen in the first place, and that because of bomb testing, he's now also robbed of life. American Godzilla being a Superman figure is really safe and boring and makes no sense to.
Yeah, but going by your logic there, Skipper, you should have liked 98 then, because 98 followed the same blueprint that 54 had. So they killed Godzilla in the end. They had people feel bad about it. And somebody celebrating that. I was in the theater watching that shit, so I know that didn't happen. So,
and why does he do that? Why does he compare him to Superman? Godzilla is vulnerable. Godzilla almost died twice. He almost died in 2014, and then he almost got killed in King of the Monsters. And I'm like, dude, if you're gonna talk about Superman, bro, talk about everything, every single aspect of Superman, which is Superman has a god complex. Yeah, Godzilla has a god complex, but Godzilla gets tired. Godzilla can get wounded. Godzilla can be hurt. So if you're gonna talk about if you're gonna compare him to Superman, bro, go for the facts. Godzilla's from fucking Krypton. He landed on Earth. He became the Protector. He didn't find out till later. So, and he's literally almost invulnerable to any kind of form except for kryptonite. So I'm like,
and
yeah.
the Red Sun.
Yes. So if you're gonna freaking do that, bro, get your fucking facts right and really. If you're gonna compare him to another character,
I'm gonna go ahead and troll this guy. Godzilla whooped Superman's ass in a recent comic, so no. So stop comparing him to Superman. He literally whooped his ass.
Well, people don't understand is that Godzilla. It takes a lot of his energy when he uses the heat.
Especially Monsterverse Godzilla. You can literally tell
and so
he gets fatigued.
That's why he's so beat by the time he's like at the end of the movie. He's so tired. Like he's just got done fighting two creatures and extending all that energy. And he's not even at full power. That's why when Serizawa sacrificed himself in King of the Monsters, it just rejuvenates him in a faster way. And so he has to actually shoot up in the sky just to get some of it out of him. He goes in burning mode and everything else. So you have to kind of understand these things. I get it. He's not a Godzilla fan, but this is part of the process. If you're going to, as John put it, use essays to try to critique something and then miss the finer points of everything. You got to know about the things you're talking about.
Due to the origins of the character. 2014 Godzilla isn't flawed because it has human characters and barely shows Godzilla with only a little bit of action fights. Because as we see later, those movies are even worse. 2014 is flawed because it doesn't stand for anything and is a safe depiction that makes this Americanized monster a hero without anything to say. And I know 1954 is old and that movie is aged, but recently a movie has come out that has blown all the Godzilla movies in the past 10 years out the water. And it was from Toho Studios, or Godzilla is back in Japan, and that movie was Takashi Yamazaki's Godzilla -1. Godzilla -1 was why I made this entire video, because it might be the best Godzilla movie ever made, and it actually made me
It's fifth best.
feel something. I'm a big box office pessimist, and lately American blockbusters have been safe, generic, and boring, which is no surprise that they've been flopping left and right because people are burnt out of high-budget mediocrity. So to watch a Godzilla movie with compelling human characters, nuanced discussion with critiques on the Japanese government, while having havoc and consequences that feel impactful, while also having an antagonist that is menacing, threatening, and terrifying, all done with $15 million, was beyond satisfying. If it wasn't obvious from the games industry, with companies like From Software and Nintendo, Japan could cook up some pretty cool shit. Godzilla -1 makes American Godzilla look like an embarrassment because it does.
Say something?
Sure.
So he should probably realize that it's because of Monsterverse that there is -1. Because there's a lot of inspiration from 2014 to -1.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned this in my ranking videos I did not too long ago, and when it like -1 is like my fifth favorite now. There's a lot of nostalgia with some of the older films, and of course, King of the Monsters, as Sci-Fi pointed out, that's like my favorite just because of what they were able to do with the fluidity of the other creatures involved and seeing them brought to life like that. Now, Skipper, not fan of Godzilla, wouldn't understand that part of it. It's fine. I will give him this. -1, despite being fifth on my list, it is the best fucking written story of any Godzilla film out there. The best written one.
I agree with that.
It's so moving. It's well acted. Everything about it is top notch. So I have no negatives about -1. It's the best film to come out last year. Should have fucking won awards. I'm going with Walter on that. There's so much about it that really, and it's unfortunate they couldn't get it out in more theaters. It deserved a bigger release, but you can't knock the Monsterverse because that part played into why Toho even went back to Godzilla. Like even when Shin came out, it took a lot of shit because it was so different. And so I'm not even sure what they were thinking at the time. Like they might have thought, well, fuck, man, we did this. It was okay. It did succeed, but people didn't really like it on the American market or even other areas of the globe. But with Monsterverse still doing well, they came back and did -1. They didn't have to, but they did, and they did a fucking amazing job with it.
it's number 2 because of the story and what they also did with Godzilla. Because we literally see him be so aggressive, so emotional towards the human characters. But for me, why it's number 2 is because they had to go back to that time frame, like when 54 came from, in order to invoke the message and the feeling that they wanted to invoke. Which is why
I would never argue with anybody that has -1 as their favorite. I would never argue because there's so much about it that I love. Like, there's just no way I would argue.
Oh, definitely.
But like I said, Godzilla and Mechagodzilla 74 is up there for me. G2000. There's different reasons why I like these films over this one, but they're just minor, you know.
Yeah,
I was going to say this, man. I'm sorry, man. I just want to put this real quick. I just want to add this. The fact that, you know what? I think he wouldn't have made this video if -1 never came out. And here's what I'm going to say. He, like, and I'm not going to be like said, I'm not an elitist, so I'm not going to tell him that, oh, no, he's just, you know, one of those fans that just, you know, watched it because he heard the whole thing. He heard how good it was, and he heard all, you know, general public, like, yeah, man, you know, you heard this movie. Oh, Godzilla was great. Yeah, Godzilla was great. To me, it can just be like, you know what? I can easily say, no, he's just jumping on the bandwagon like a lot of other casual Godzilla fans, you know, probably did. But it's crazy how a lot of casual fans and even people who probably never seen Godzilla, who just know Godzilla because of pop culture, that watched it and liked it because, oh man, you know, this is a really good movie, but we're probably not even fans and think it's a good movie. And I just think he is in that category. I don't think the fact that, yeah, he says if he's Godzilla fan, okay, yeah, cool, whatever, bro. But I just don't see it, and I don't feel it. But I just wanted to get that out there because to me, he sounds like he's just a freaking one of the people that just, you know, heard it by mouth or heard it by ear on the internet. Oh my God, it's such a great movie. -1 is so great. I just think he's just a bandwagon jumper. I just think that's what it is. And if -1 had never been made, he would not make this video.
Probably not. But yeah, and also, like you mentioned, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 74 and Godzilla vs. Gigan. Those are movies that I have in my top 5 because those were the movies that introduced me to the franchise.
Right. Yeah, because people take, like, for, you know, Walter, you know, it's Godzilla versus Megalon. Like, a lot of people look back at it and say that's one of the goofiest Godzilla movies out there, but there's a reason why it's one of his favorites, right? So we know this. It's always a nostalgic thing. So it doesn't take credit away from any other film, but, you know.
Yeah, it's like what you said.
But let me, I'm sorry, John, let me just say this real quick. I'll add on to the fact that even I, as an adult, know that Megalon is a completely silly, you know, outrageous kind of film. But as you say, it's a nostalgia, and it was my first one. And the thing about it is, it was the one movie where you see kaiju action right off the bat. You know, you see action constantly through this film, you know, and I think that's the reason why it honed into me that, okay, this is why I liked it so much. But
yeah,
still at the same time, you know, even though it's at the top, I know that, you know, others have the reason why I like them, because like I say, right now, -1 is actually above, you know, Shin Godzilla on my list, you know. So, but the thing is, it'll still, guys, I mean, Megalon will always still be at the top because it has that nostalgia play, and it's that one that's still close to my heart of how I got my love for Godzilla in the first place. Because if I never saw Megalon, who knows? It might have been King Kong versus Godzilla. It might have been Ghidorah. Who knows? Might have been one of those. But hadn't been fit for Megalon, yeah, it would have been a different story. You know, with my Megalon would probably have been down like maybe 20 or 15. Who knows what the list on my list, you know, would be, the number would be. But that's how it be. You know, you just never know. You know.
Yeah.
Shin is not the worst movie. It's not one of my worst movies, but it's just one of my. It's not one of my very least favorite. It's just one that I don't. Everybody, you know, jumps on it. I'm just saying, this is my opinion. You know, everybody's entitled to their opinion. I'm entitled to my fucking opinion.
Exactly.
Shin is not one of those that I just. The story is kind of okay, but it's still kind of like, okay, where's the real purpose of it? But I know it's because of what happened, because of the tsunami and all that stuff. So that's why I give it some credit. And I mean, like I said, it's not one of the my least favorites. It's just more lower than in between. But that's what I'm saying. Like, and then going back to what I'm saying, like this guy has a lot of good points, but like anybody else, he has his opinion. I have my opinion, and that's just what I think. That he's just one of those people that was a bandwagon jumper who decided to make a video, put his 2 cents on Godzilla because he actually liked -1. So that's just my opinion. If anybody don't fucking like it, they can go fuck themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just
Sci Fi Sentry.
Like what Anubis was saying earlier, if it's their favorite movie, I'm not going to argue with them because this could be the movie that introduces them to the entire franchise. Whereas there were I know some people in the community tend to bash on this movie. This is a movie I didn't like at first, but learned to respect, and that was 98. But there were 3 people I know where this was the movie that introduced them to the Godzilla franchise. So even though it wasn't the Godzilla we were hoping they'd be introduced to, they in some way got introduced to Godzilla and thus were able to take it from there.
Yeah.
Everything better. Like 1954, Godzilla isn't a character, but more of a natural disaster. And for a natural disaster to have impact, first you need compelling people to be impacted. I cared about the human characters in this film, and I hated Godzilla for what he did to them. But the reason why the human characters were so impactful was because of Japan and how it's depicted. Japan is a place in history that has been through a lot of shit, which makes it a great setting for Godzilla because it goes hand to hand with its creation like we said earlier. After World War II, Japan was in a low state, and the victims of both Hiroshima and Nagasaki, as well as the firebomb victims, were innocent people caught in the crossfire between feuding militaries. The movie takes place right after World War II with Japan at its lowest point, which brings up a huge point for why this movie exists. It's once again an anti-war film where you're reminded that the Imperial Japan military was not great and that the modern Japanese government is not that great either. Japanese studios such as Ghibli and even films like 1954's Godzilla tend to only depict Japan as the victims to catastrophe from the United States, but something to remember is that after Japan's very flawed attack on Pearl Harbor, Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto wrote this in his diary after Pearl Harbor. "I fear all we have done is awaken a sleeping giant and fill him with terrible resolve." It makes sense why Japan is very anti-war after what the atomic bomb did to them, but old Japanese media has a massive trend of playing victim in history when, even before the atomic bombs, Japan's military was notorious for conquering other nations and being really brutal, committing tons of war crimes in their history. The Japanese military also had no value for human life, brainwashing an entire nation that dying for said nation was one of the most honorable things you could do. It's why
Well, yeah, that's part of their culture and their military history. That was part of the storyline in -1. But like, I heard someone say at one point, like shortly after the film got released, that they thought it was pro-suicide, which I thought was ridiculous.
Oh, I remember seeing that. I'm like, okay, that's friggin' stupid. It's not. It's literally their culture because they felt like that was the only way to take out a ship because that's the only way they could take out those battleships.
Yeah.
Also,
Well, I mean-
I'm gonna leave for a little bit. Got to use the bathroom, but I'll be right back.
That's fine.
But also, man, like, okay, yeah, America. Of course, I'm proud to be American, and everything like that. But it's like Anubis said, man. You're talking about. Of course, every fucking country has committed war crimes, man. Every fucking country has committed war crimes, and yet he's just kind of like throwing salt on the Japanese, where the Japanese have their own culture, regardless of people like it or not. They have their own culture, just like we have our own culture. And the way they grew up and how they lived through their lives in Japan, and how even since feudal Japan and in ancient Japan, they're gonna do it anyway. They're gonna fucking they already did it, bro. They already fucking did it. So why are you bringing that shit up again? Where Japanese are known to be brutal, motherfucker. That's where the samurais were born, of course.
Exactly. And I'm somebody, I've always admired a samurai, and part of that's the honor behind it. So, yeah, you don't want men that go to war to die, but part of Japan's culture throughout their history has been honor and honorable deaths. So the kamikaze were just another extension of that. And it doesn't necessarily make it right, but the reality is that was part of their culture. So you can't just sit there and try to demean them or insult them and their culture. That's just how they've been throughout history. Now they've changed a lot over the years, obviously.
Definitely.
Yeah,
but in their mind.
We have to remember too, Japan. I mean, the people of Japan, us, anyone around the world, we're only human, man. I mean, we'll live up to the honor, to the tradition, all the things that we've been taught. But the thing is, we are human beings, man. I mean, as you said, Japan has changed a lot in time, just like America. Possibly they've changed a little bit, but the thing is, we are human beings, and for him to be saying, you know, Japan, this, I'm like, dude, okay, you got to understand something. What happens in a millisecond of a person's life during conflict, you don't know, because like I say, I'm saying again, he's a baby, you know, he doesn't know. He's probably never seen conflict of any kind. You don't know what that person might be thinking at that sense of the word, because
well, on the other part is if he's such a big fan of this film with -1, then obviously he knows that I forget the character's name now, is the guy that was on the island with him that actually put in the ejection seat.
Tachibana.
Yeah, so you have these characters that show growth throughout the entire film. They change from one thing to something else. So that's a big plus for the movie itself and for Japanese culture. So he should be kind of acknowledging that as well.
Yeah, and see, and like I said, I'm not saying it's okay for what happened, you know, what Japan did. Of course not. But that's what I'm saying. Every single fucking country has committed war crimes, have done some shady, inhumane shit. But I mean, I said, I'm not saying it was okay for what Japan did. But remember, if he's gonna go back and do history, bro, if you're gonna do history, fucking do your fucking history, and don't just say about Japan, oh, they were brutal. Motherfucker, every fucking country was brutal.
We were
every
brutal after 9/11.
Every single country has done shit like that. And then like Anubis, and going back to Anubis, what Walter said, the Japanese they no longer need us. Maybe in commerce, and when it comes to getting stuff, you know, when it comes to, of course, needing certain supplies and stuff like that. But the Japan is already independent and doesn't need us. But I mean, like I said, but I'm not saying that it made it right for what every single country has done. But the dude's making it sound like Japan was so brutal. Like, motherfucker, every single country was fucking brutal. Yeah. China, all of them. That's what I'm saying. But I mean, like, and again, like I said, that's just my opinion. I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm just saying, you know, my 2 cents on that. And like I said, if this motherfucker's gonna do a history lesson, why first do the lesson, learn your history, and then don't bash on it. But I understand. Okay, he has some good points, man, and you know, referring to the movie but that's just me, though. I'm sorry. I'm getting a little.
Countries are guilty of being power hungry, and that's why we end up being brutal. We're all guilty of power hunger. That's what leads to brutality.
Well, war has never been pretty. So I know Walter wanted to say something. Go ahead, brother.
No, I was just gonna add to what Daniel was saying. Is the simple fact is, if he digs deep, which I'm hoping he does, go back centuries, go back thousands of years. Go back to the times when, you know, certain places, certain cultures dominated some others. I mean, hell, go back to the times of Egypt time where, you know, they were dominating the Hebrews back then. You know, I mean, come on, man. I mean, these kind of things were going, and they were brutal. And back then, I'm not saying it wasn't brutal here, but back then they were malicious, boy. They were like doing some shit that we can't even mention here. You know, it's just that brutal. That's the kind of thing it was.
The thing too is like whenever we discuss slavery in America, nobody wants to talk about slavery across the world. I mean, Egypt enslaved people, other countries enslaved people. Like it's not just an American thing. Like it happened all over the world, and it's a nasty thing that doesn't need to be around anymore.
They had things like kamikaze pilots and seppuku. This is why Imperial Japan and American media is portrayed to be so relentless and brutal, not caring if they lived or died. Because for the most part, they didn't care if they lived or died. It was expected that you were going to die in combat. Like I said earlier, with media like Oppenheimer and nuclear war being a really big issue today, the atomic bomb debate is now fresh again. But with everything aside, without the atomic bomb drop, Japan would have continued a relentless war with the United States. So while I know Godzilla 1954 is very much still an anti-war film about how nukes are bad, showing what Japan went through, it does brush past that Japan's military threw a stone at the United States, killing United States civilians when they were well aware they were never going to win a conflict with the United States, but still did it anyway since they needed to get resources from claimed US lands that were under embargo laws. So
I don't know how accurate that is because I think he mentioned the Japanese general who made the comment about the sleeping giant. They had sent out the declaration of war on America, but it got to us later than they expected. So they took ownership of that, but at the same time, like, you know, it's not like they just said, oh yeah, you know, They didn't get the message. We're going to go and do it anyway. They were under the assumption that we knew they were coming.
And not only that, man, like it does make sense. Like, why would a country like Japan, it's actually it's a country, but it's more like a giant island.
Right.
So that is always a question. Why did they want to try to conquer a huge United States of America? Why would they want to do that? You know what, man? You can't ask anybody. You can't go ask all of the people back in 1940s because they're all dead. You know, I mean, read books, get doing more information on the generals and the so-called heroes of war in Japan. So I mean, yeah, but it does make anybody's gonna ask that question. Why the hell did Japan even try to go to war against a much bigger country? So that's
from everything that I recall, the whole idea of the Pearl Harbor was they thought our entire Navy was in there. And so they thought if they crippled our Navy, that would give them an easier time to handle the war. But luckily for us, most of our bigger ships were not in there. But it was a devastating day for sure. But again, like, you know, look, I don't look at Japan any less for. I mean, yeah, obviously it was a bad moment, but you're in war, dude. Shit's nasty. They did some awful things to people in the Philippines, Chinese people and stuff. I mean, you know, they do have some blood in their hands, but so do we. You just can't get by it. And I'm not going to sit there and try to scapegoat them as like the worst ever. Like, that's ridiculous.
Oh, shit. I mean, no, I wouldn't. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Anubis. I'll tell you. No, I'm just saying I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't do the same thing. I wouldn't be scapegoating. You know, the United States because they've done a lot of stupid shit. You know, but I'm not gonna be. You know, against, you know, anti-American because I'm fucking proud to be American. You know, I am an American, but it's like everybody has that sense of, oh no, he kind of makes it sound like he's just, oh no, Japan bad, America good.
And I was just gonna add this real quick. It's just war really brings out the worst out of anybody. I mean, no matter what country it is. I mean, yeah, I'm like sci-fi. I'm proud to be an American. I mean, even though nowadays it's kind of off a little bit. But the simple fact is, war is not pretty. War's never been glamorous. All it is something that one side is going to be defeated, the other one's going to lose. But how brutal are you going to do it? You know, and it's like I say, it really brings out the ugly in anyone, you know. And I hate to know that war is in our dictionary. Yeah, yes, thank you. It's in our history, but that is how it is. You know, we are humans and we're going to do these things, you know.
There was a video I saw on I think it was a guy who went to Iraq. He was like a Navy SEAL vet, and he said, and so this is like a huge outtake on war that I've seen to where, like, he comes in, he's getting ready to shoot this guy, but in his room is his wife and his 3-year-old little kid. And he said he's just seen them with innocent eyes just looking at him, but he still has to do his job because that's what he was trained to do. And he said, if we weren't fighting in this war, we could have been, he goes like, one thing he asks himself is, could we have had a conversation at a coffee shop? Could we have ran into each other at Paris and had a good laugh over a bagel or something? Like, it just kind of shows that outtake of how cruel war is. It's like, it really depicts so many people who are good as bad because of the side they have to fight for, because most of those countries overseas kind of force them to.
Right.
Harbor was an attack on the U.S. Navy to demoralize the U.S., but they didn't attack the repair yards, so it was pointless anyway, and got their whole nation nuked in retaliation. So while the ethics of the atomic bomb can be debated, Japan's military put their civilians in harm's way for no reason, which is why modern-day Japan is more resentful of Imperial Japan when it comes to anti-war rather than the United States. Japan during the 1910s to 1920s was in a really good innovative period called the Taisho Jidai. Japan was transitioning to more of a Western democratic government, with a lot of Western influence impacting culture, arts, politics, and many other avenues. I need to clearly state that Japan and Japan's military are two different things. Japan's military was a parasite to the Japanese government, taking control from the inside, which, as we know, was the demise of Japan itself. I joked about it earlier, but people like Ishiro Honda, who made the original Godzilla, was even at fault for this. While he acknowledged how horrific war was, he still made propaganda films for the Japanese military, which led to this cancer spreading. Propaganda and military control started dragging Japanese society into their conflicts. Men were expected to go to war and die. It was seen as honorable to serve and die for your military. This is why I prefer -1 to the original 1954 movie, because -1 is critical to the Japanese government. Godzilla in the film is going against the normal Japanese people. The government is no help and doesn't intervene, and neither does the US, because if they did the film...
Hold on, Anubis.
Yeah.
Walter.
Yes.
I know about Ishiro Honda, and I've done research and my shit like that, but he made war propaganda films because he was angry.
That I don't know. See, because I know when he was in war, he never really shot his gun. I mean, he shot his gun, but he shot it upwards because he did not believe in fighting. He didn't want to fight someone else. That, you know, why am I fighting this person? Why am I trying to kill him? You know. So as far as him making propaganda films, that I'm not sure. I didn't really take no notes on that, but I don't believe
he just said that. I don't know if you guys caught it, but he just said that Ishiro Honda made propaganda films for the Japanese.
Yeah, I heard it.
I don't know much about his history, so I don't know if that's true or not. I think I might have heard that in passing.
Why would he do war propaganda films if the United States already had sanctioned? They already had sanctioned Japan, and Japan had already surrendered. I mean, he's not. That's what I'm saying.
Unless this was before he got drafted into World War II, where he made propaganda films for Japan.
Well, he also mentioned though that Imperial Japan had a lot of control, so you can argue that during that time he might have been under pressure from the government.
I was going to say he might have been forced to. Yeah, I was going to say he might have been coerced into doing that.
Well, that's why I asked you. Well, that's why I asked you. Well, because you do more of the digging into the information and stuff like that. So
but I've never heard him doing propaganda film. And then, like I say, what John was saying, he might have been doing it before he got into the military. So. But no, I've never really heard about that. I mean, because that's something I don't hear too much. I do know that when he was in the military, when he was in the war, no, he didn't really shoot his gun at the enemy. He shot it upwards, so he didn't shoot the enemy because he didn't feel that they were enemy in terms of why am I trying to kill this person? Why am I trying to kill these people? You know, I mean, I don't want to be here no more than these probably other. I mean, we're defending our country, but to say that we're doing this to do this is like, no, you know. So.
Yeah, that kind of struck a fucking nerve in me.
I know. I was going to say, kind of like, what?
Like he said that he made that he, out of his own free will made. It's like this dumb fuck is saying that he literally said that Ishiro Honda made propaganda films, war propaganda films for Japan. So, I mean, now I'm gonna go dig in deep for that shit and find out if that's actually true, because that is I don't think that's true. I mean,
because that's why I was telling you, because I know if he did that, it's like, okay, wait a minute, are you serious, dude? Because even like you, I'm like, that doesn't sound right, you know? Because he said he was part of the problem. Why he was contributing to the problem of of Japan and saying being in. I'm like, no, dude, I don't think so. I don't believe that's true.
And then another thing he said earlier, and I mean going back, because that's another fucking thing that I heard. He says Godzilla is not a character. I'm like,
I remember that. I was like, okay.
Okay. This is what Wiki said. So, Honda would then return home in December 1942, only to find that PCL, now rebranded as Toho by that point, were forced to produce propaganda films to support the war effort. So he had no choice in this. If he was going to be a filmmaker, Toho was forced to do these films. The government took control. The government took control of the Japanese film industry in 1939, modeling the passage of motion picture laws after Nazi policies where scripts and films were reviewed so the supported war effort and filmmakers non-compliant were punished or worse. So yes, he was under threat from his own government to put these out.
But he did not say that. But he did not.
That's context. That's context you got to put in there.
But he did not say that. He did not.
That's what I'm saying.
That.
That's his mistake. Is he's not putting it in context. He's making it sound like Honda's doing this like from his.
It's like on his own free will. It's like
yeah, didn't he? Because it's just like what Daniel was saying was that like he was doing this out of anger.
No.
Yeah, from what I just read, it's all because of the government took control of the industry.
Oh,
they forced him to
that definitely makes a lot of sense.
This dude is really getting on my balls.
Look, he's riding my ball for the minute, and I've heard a lot of misinformation. A little bit, some of it. I mean, some of it's on point, but the rest is like, okay, dude, you about to get me on. You about to get me on fire.
I was willing to give a benefit of a doubt, but now this dumb fuck, bro. Your age just signifies your fucking ignorance, man. And I don't give a fuck. Anybody fucking don't like this shit. I don't give a fuck. Come at me, man. That shit. Yeah, like he's putting that shit on. Just like Anubis saying, Honda was forced to make propaganda films, and this dude's making it saying, "Oh no, he did it. He did it. He did not put that in there in context, saying that, oh no, he made it sound like that Honda was doing it out of his own free will."
It will.
So
that's sort of what he's implying. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, my bad.
2 seconds. But -1 is a critique to the Japanese government's beliefs and values in World War II. The main character is a kamikaze pilot that is full of survivor's guilt because he didn't fulfill the military standards of giving your own life for a government that doesn't really care about you. He is judged by his neighbors for not killing himself in war, and is hateful of himself, struggling with survivor's guilt for also not killing himself in war. The film directly critiques Japan's old views of not valuing human life, or how Japan didn't care about anyone's life really at all. And while Godzilla is still an allegory for the nuclear bomb, the film really conveys how it was the everyday people who had to pick up the pieces and deal with the fallout. Godzilla -1 is an unbiased masterclass when it comes to being an anti-war film. So much so that you could remove Godzilla from it, and it would still be an amazing standalone film, which...
That's fact.
Yeah, that I agree with. That's a very good point.
Yeah. Brings us back to why America can't do Godzilla. Back in 1954 when...
But, dude, again, there's different iterations of fucking Godzilla. So, like... America's only done one really villain Godzilla, and that was 98. So they're not doing that version. So if you're going to do like -1, then Godzilla would have to, or America would have to actually make Godzilla the villain, which they haven't done.
To say that
he's not understanding that there's different versions.
Like if America really wanted to, they could do so on a major tragedy that's happened in this country that's affected them, like, even though they may be sketchy and kind of dodgy, 9/11, they could make.
I mean, look, they wouldn't get away with using Godzilla for something like that. I don't think Toe would really give them the pass on that. But
well, I mean, like
let's say they took the Cloverfield monster and wanted to do that, right? You could do that, but the reality is like this guy's not understanding that he keeps trying to correlate anti-hero Godzilla with villain Godzilla and the allegory. Like it's fine, I get this. -1's awesome. I'm not going to disagree there with him on that. But they're different types of movies, and right now the MonsterVerse is not this type of movie.
No.
Well, you know what? Here's another reason why, and I'm going to say this, man. You know, maybe people misinterpret it. I don't care. Look, dumbass. The reason why freaking the United States could not make a Godzilla film is because we have not had a fucking atomic bomb dropped on the U.S. So you can't even substitute everything that we've gone through, because we've also gone through a lot of fucked up shit, bad shit. But it's more that, you know, we've never had that happen to us. You never had that fucking happen in the U.S. So that, you think about it, bro. The reason why you think that the U.S. cannot make a good film, maybe they can make a good film, but you cannot compare the tragedies of what happened in Japan, because it's such a small country, and all the other bad shit that's happened in the U.S. So
Godzilla is a character rooted completely from tragedy that they had to experience.
Exactly, you know, and it would be hard I think it would be hard for the U.S. to add, you know, I mean, how much tragic shit have we had? Earthquakes, fucking all kinds of bad shit. You know,
The closest we've had, even though it's nowhere near what they went through the bombing, the closest we had is a 9/11 terrorist attack.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. This guy has to understand that, you know, as much as tragic shit we've gone through, we've never had something like that happen to us. So it's kind of hard. It's like it's almost like you cannot replicate that. Like it cannot be replicated. That's just my take. That's just my take. That's just me. That's
Okay, you want to hear something funny?
Go ahead.
Cool.
I just looked it up. So the Japanese box office for 2023, right? This is in Japan. -1 finished 13th. Obviously, it's still nice, right?
Okay.
But now listen, at 9, Fast X. Fast X. All right. Now at number 1, the Super Mario Brothers. Those are American films.
Okay.
That did better than -1 in their own country. I'm not saying that they're better films than -1. What I'm saying is you're trying to use something to like diss American and what they're doing with Japanese characters like Godzilla, you know, and then like not understanding that both countries deal with films differently. So I was thinking that in Japan there was some other Japanese films in the list, but I was thinking there's probably gonna be like a rom-com or something in Japan that might be way higher than -1, because even in their own country, I can say that Godzilla is probably not the most famous thing that people go to watch. There's a lot out there, but I think we can all agree that without the support of the surrounding globe, Godzilla wouldn't be as big as it is. There's a reason why Godzilla is big, and it's not just because of Japan and their support. It's Americans. It's Europe. It's all these other countries that are supporting this character.
Yeah, I think the biggest box office success that's in Japan is I think it's the Demon Slayer movie.
Yeah,
that actually finished 7th. That was finished.
Yeah, and I'll say this, and it's already been proven to people that I talked to and people that I've seen and been on other podcasts with. Godzilla is not the most popular thing in Japan.
Yeah.
I mean, frick, dude. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny was 16th.
I'm surprised Barbie wasn't number 1 there. Tell you the truth.
Yeah. Did it even get released there?
I don't know. So that's what I'm saying. I don't know.
Let's see. Wonka's at 32. I don't see.
It was so popular here, so I was thinking maybe it'd been the top 10.
Right.
Well, Super Mario Brothers is one of also Japan's biggest moneymakers and biggest long-running video game franchises.
Dude,
that's right.
Barbie was 83rd.
What? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, 83rd.
Take that, Barbie.
Even Megan beat it out.
Oh man, that's saying something right there.
Yeah.
Surprise guest.
All right. Let's see how much more we got. Only a few minutes left, so let's.
Godzilla came to the US, it was censored and remarketed to look like a fun blockbuster, similar to something like The Beast of 20,000 Fathoms, cutting 20 minutes of crucial political discussion, where then after the main lead was an inserted American reporter, where then the critiques of America's nuclear testing and nuclear power were also censored and changed. 1956 Godzilla King of the Monsters is a spineless shit movie that gutted the original impact of the 1954 version, and represents how the United States often views critical media. So when we look at the depth of something like -1 and then go back to 2014, you see more cracks of how 2014 has nothing to say. My friend Sweets is Online gave me a quote when we were talking about this video. If you want to know what the biggest piggy bank is in the world, look at the United States military. Funding games like Call of Duty, movies like Top Gun, and many other pieces of media to display the United States military. You could get a lot of your budget paid when you display the military as heroic badasses. But now you have restrictions of being a puppet, not able to bite the hand that feeds you. United States propaganda is so prevalent that you might not even know. You more about Reptar and Shelley from.
God damn it. Go ahead.
What I was going to say is, so in 2014, Gareth had plans for the U.S. military, but the plans changed because the U.S. military didn't want them being badmouthed within the movie. Like the government didn't want them being badmouthed within 2014, so. What the original plans Gareth Edwards had for the military and their role in the movie and within the script, he had to be forced to change that because the U.S. didn't want that.
Well, I mean, look, I haven't seen every Asian film out there. I mean, I've had to ask Eric, the Asian movie enthusiast, but I'm sure there are things in Japanese culture and their filmmaking that they prop up over. Maybe it might not be military, but let's say Yakuza or even Shogun or samurai stuff. So I'm pretty sure they still prop up some of these old culture belief systems that he was criticizing earlier in this video. So, look, every country is going to prop up their own country in one way or the other. Yeah, America stands a lot with patriotism. It's part of the thing. But I'd rather have that freedom to either say, yeah, I want to go see this film or I don't, than to be in some country where I don't have that choice. Or even be able to make a film of my choice like that. There are countries that won't even allow you to make films like that. So,
and I don't even bash. I'm sorry, bro. I mean, I'm just saying I don't even bash our own military, bro. I don't even bash our own military, but other people, I have my cousin who did fucking 8 years and did 2 tours in Iraq and 1 in Afghanistan, and he, regardless of all the shit he's told me, which I cannot tell you guys, he still is proud of being in the military. But the shit he's told me, bro, all I'm gonna say is I won't bash our military because I know what they do, the sacrifices they make. But I wouldn't be surprised that what Big Bad Wolf said is that the military does not want to look like it's small, because what does the military always look like when it comes to a Godzilla movie? Small.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I know there's a movie from way back with Michael J. Fox where he was in a movie about war, and it was something going on with what is it?
Is it Casualties of War?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's very anti-American because of the shit that went on with the rape and stuff like that. So they're not afraid to do it. It may not stand out as much as like fucking Maverick or Top Gun, but I still look at Maverick and Top Gun as just popcorn movie. It's not really meant to, I don't get like any real sense of patriotism out of it really, because it's more just about the characters and how goofy they are and trying to do their flying, stuff like that. I don't really come out of it like, hey, let's go to war. Yeah, man. Like it was
just a popcorn fun nostalgia thrill ride because they made several callbacks to the original.
Right.
Yeah. And every military has done fucking fucked up shit, especially the US, but so have other militaries in the fucking all over the world. So that's why it's like, that's why I'm like, and Top Gun to me was just a fucking, it's a decent movie. It's cool, whatever. But I mean, talk about Saving Private Ryan, talk about Platoon, talk about freaking Hamburger Hill or
Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
About this video. If you want to know what the biggest piggy bank is in the world, look at the United States military, funding games like Call of Duty, movies like Top Gun, and many other pieces of media to display the United States military. You could get a lot of your budget paid when you display the military as heroic badasses. But now you have restrictions of being a puppet, not able to bite the hand that feeds you. United States propaganda is so prevalent that you might not even know it's propaganda. To film with American military technology and vehicles is expensive. Thus, why the Department of Defense will give you money, tax breaks, and access to display the military in your film in hopes that people might want to enlist. But the catch is that the DoD has to approve your script and messaging of how the military is depicted. Thus, we bring up Vietnam. The Vietnam War is heavily scrutinized in American history due to how badly they failed in that conflict and how it was overall pointless. So you have films that represent the brutality of the United States as well as the incompetence, like Apocalypse Now and Full Metal Jacket. And surprise, surprise, they got no funding from the piggy bank. Also, you know that movie Forrest Gump where Sheriff Woody was in Vietnam?
But it still showed how America isn't always pro-America. There's some bad shit about America even in those films.
Vietnam? Well, that segment was critical of Vietnam, so the script was changed by the Department of Defense because if they didn't, they'd also get no money from the piggy bank. When you do more research yourself, you see how much America cares about their image due to the films being seen nationwide. So they make sure that America looks cool and noble no matter what, even if the truth might not be so. So when you see Godzilla 2014 with a budget of $160 million with American Navy and bomb squads and Air Force all helping Godzilla save the day, it's no surprise that the film had an agreement with the Department of Defense where they provided locations, vehicles, and military.
I don't know, man. I didn't come out of 2014 or even King of the Monsters thinking the military did much of anything. They kind of sucked. They didn't have any effect on those monsters whatsoever.
They literally couldn't. They literally just forced to just watch the brawl. They couldn't do anything.
I mean, if anything, Godzilla and Kong. I mean, Godzilla in the ocean when he first comes after Kong the first time, he's like laying waste to the entire.
He literally
nation.
just
He's, like,
plowed
destroying
right through them, cut them in half.
Yeah.
And all I can say is it's better than how they were portrayed in '98. '98 made the military look like a bunch of fools.
Right. Yeah.
Representation. And while at times the military is incompetent and kind of useless in the film, it's never acknowledged or critiqued with grand messaging. Because like I said, to bite the hand that feeds you is going to drop your budget from 160 million to low 15 million like Godzilla -1. It's why Godzilla can't work in America. To be critical of the United States government requires you to be independent. And by how bloated the film industry is with high film budgets and how propaganda has affected how the Godzilla character is viewed, you make more money by having Godzilla be Superman, killing tons of innocent people where then they clap at him saving the day, rather than him destroying the United States with the government losing and being useless. And this has been a problem since 1956, when America turned a tragedy film to a blockbuster, gutting it of any meaning, and no.
Was 54 a blockbuster in America when they did it? I don't think it did like quite that well.
The 54 version of Godzilla.
Yeah.
It did make some money. It did might not make as much as what it did in Japan,
Yeah,
but
but I mean, we're a bigger country, so it would do a little bit better. But I mean, it's not like it made $1 gazillion here in America.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, but no,
even now when we look at the MonsterVerse, people still don't care that much about it. Just the people that are diehards.
Yeah, I think it made like 500K.
But I don't think. I don't think actually, the Japanese version wasn't released in America until years later.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't. But to say that he said that it loses is just just a monster of this and that. I actually don't see that. I mean, because when I first saw King of the Monsters 56 version, I thought there were still remnants of what the original Japanese cut was in here in the American cut. I felt it was still there, that what made me want to see the original cut, because once you see the original cut, it's like, okay, it just adds on with more character and more what they're talking about. But actually, I didn't feel that. I didn't see that loss of the message with this version of it, the American cut of with Raymond Burr in there. I felt, it's still there. I mean, maybe there were some things taken out of it, but I still felt that, I still felt that it was there.
That's the first one we saw. That's the first one I ever saw. Like I said, it was 1988 or 87 that I saw I saw this Godzilla, and I didn't think it was that bad either. That was the only I guess one that we were able to see, because I didn't see the Japanese version until way later.
Yeah, I didn't.
I mean, he kind of makes it sound like that America shouldn't take interest in these films at all. Like, I don't understand the logic here. It's like we make a bunch of films here, Marvel or whatever, and it does really well across the globe. -1 was an amazing film that needs to be shared. So, like, are we not supposed to pay attention to it, like, at all, or even try to do our own versions of the films? Like, it just makes no sense. Like, like, that was such a big moment for Japan with 54 that we had to take notice. Like, and that's part of the reason. Like, I would rather know about it and know the pain behind it than to not have it come over here and be shared. Like, it's stupid. I don't understand the logic.
I feel like we as a country, I think we're kind of desensitized with the fact that if we're America, we're supposed to just stick with, okay, this has to be American, and we have to be this and that in terms of filming. And it's like, okay, but you can bring in a different kind of flavor from other countries, whether it be Spain, Africa, Australia, Russia. I mean, they do have their own, plethora of whatever they're going to bring over here. And I've seen some films from these countries, and I feel that they have something to say. You just have to let your mind float away and say, open your mind to say that this is good. America ain't the only place where they make movies, man. That's the thing.
No surprise, Godzilla King of the Monsters made way more money than Gojira. So much so that Japan stopped calling him Gojira and took on Godzilla and repainted his image as the savior of Japan that fought giant monsters. 529 million, 387 million. They're making money, and that's all that matters now. But what?
What's that?
A little bit. Can you go back a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, go right there. I think right there.
turned a tragedy film to a blockbuster, gutting it of any meaning, and no surprise Godzilla King of the Monsters made way more money than Gojira. So much so that Japan stopped calling him Gojira and took on Godzilla, and repainted his image as the savior of Japan that fought giant monsters. 529 million, 387 million. They're making money, and that's all that matters now.
We literally went over this earlier. I mentioned the reason why he became Godzilla is because Gojira is too hard to pronounce.
But at the
Not
same
only-
time, go ahead.
I'm sorry, hold on. Not only that, he said Japan changed Gojira's name to Godzilla, which is not true.
Yeah.
No, America changed it to Godzilla for here.
Thank you.
And the simple fact is, he says they changed it from Japan changed him from a villain to a super dude. He was still a villain up until the mid 60s. Okay,
Yeah.
get your shit straight, dude. He was not a hero yet. He didn't become a
even
hero
King
until
Kong
fucking
versus
60s,
Godzilla.
man.
Even in
Yeah,
King
'cause
Kong
they
versus
had made
Godzilla
Mothra the
invades
hero.
again.
Damn.
He was still a villain, invades again in King Kong versus Godzilla. And
Yeah.
Mothra versus Godzilla. It wasn't until Ghidorah, he slowly transitioned. Monster Zero was when he fully went to superhero, which was 1965. So as Walter said, mid-60s.
Yeah.
What is
Sorry,
art,
sorry.
and how do we view art? Is a nothing blockbuster funded by the US military better than a $15 million Japanese film with a lot to say because it made more money?
I'm a little curious because, he might be right about the military funding these movies, but I'd like to see some stats and data to back that up. He doesn't really present that, and that's kind of troubling.
Yeah, I'd like to see proof that the military funds a good portion of these Hollywood
Yeah,
movies.
because, Hollywood's pretty rich on its own. So, and these studios like Warner Brothers and whatnot, they have money. So, I'd like to see his stats or data to actually back these up.
Is King of the Monsters better than Gojira since it made more money? We're beginning to look at box office as this risk-reward system, where studios don't see the risk of making something if it can't possibly 10 times its original budget. If Barbie didn't make $1 billion, was it a waste of time? If Oppenheimer didn't almost make $1 billion, was that too a waste of time? And this rubs off how we view movies. If something makes a lot of money, it must be good, and if
Well, yes and no. I go back to was it Dawn of Justice, Superman versus Batman. I didn't really like the movie. I thought Wonder Woman was the best part about it, but people were arguing, well, it did 600 billion. I'm like, well, that's good, but they went off the name brand. So just because a movie does well off a name does not necessarily mean it's a good movie.
And what was the budget for that movie? Wasn't it like 200 something?
Oh yeah, it had to be up there
$200.
easily. Yeah.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say it did well because it was like 600 million. Because you gotta you gotta look at how much it made compared to its budget.
Right.
I only saw it because I only saw Batman versus Superman because like Anubis because of Wonder Woman.
All right.
a movie flops, it must be bad. It's the same as judging a book by its cover. Yes, there's movies that spend way too much money not being creative because they believe they could 10 times their budget by simply existing. But then we get films like Gojira and Godzilla -1, which are real creative works of art that stand for something and matter aside from just money, and they need to be praised. But like how everything works, Godzilla isn't liked because of what it stands for, because what America saw was a cool giant monster that attacked Japan, not an allegory for nuclear war. And what they see now is a super
Okay, so but here's his problem. Okay, if you talk to any Godzilla fan about -1, every single one of them tell you that movie should have been up for awards like Best Picture of the Year, etc. You don't hear many people saying that King of the Monsters or G14 or Godzilla versus Kong deserve that same praise. We obviously would have liked to see it, but we don't hold those movies quite in the same categories that we do with -1, because we know that -1's a well-written story. It's a good movie. It's solid top to bottom. The people I saw some chick on the web some time back. She was saying that the reason why -1 wasn't that good is because it didn't do as well as the Monsterverse, and she didn't understand that one, -1 didn't have half the release of theaters that the Monsterverse does, and two, it didn't have half the budget. So that her argument failed right off the bat, and his is kind of the same logic. It's like he's trying to make it sound like every Godzilla fan that ever supported this franchise didn't want -1 up there in those award categories. That's not true. We've been screaming about it for fucking the past 5 months. But we can't force the Academy Awards to sit there and do this. Like they're just not. That's not how they operate.
Yep.
So I get his frustration with that part of it, but like it's not based in any reality in America as far as like Hollywood and how they deal with awards and stuff like that.
And as you mentioned before, this is Hollywood. You know, I mean, it's not going to.
Hollywood is
Right.
Hollywood is full of elitists and egomaniacs that just want to flaunt their money, because that's all the Oscars mainly are most of the time. It's, hey, our movie cost this much to make and we made this much, and somehow we got Picture of the Year or something like that. Like, okay, good for you. What do you want, a medal?
And as I just pointed out, even in Japan, this film that he calls like meaning something more, which it does, but he's making it sound like this movie is the best movie that Japan released, and it didn't hit the top of the chart. Super Mario Brothers did. An American movie made more money in Japan than this one. So he can make that argument. Then you got to criticize Japan for not standing behind this film more, right? It'd be a silly argument, but that's his logic. So I don't like that he's kind of painting it that way. Every Godzilla fan will tell you that -1 was the best picture last year. Every single one.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Superman figure that could sell toys. Godzilla has become a mascot to make money. It's why I can't enjoy the Looney Tunes version. It's why Godzilla can't work in America. But when it works in Japan, it works. And it works well. But if there's anything I can hope to get across with this video, it's to research the things you watch. And to give things with passion a try, even if you might not enjoy it. Some filmmakers actually give a shit about what they make. And use art to have a voice and tell stories without the dooming cloud of getting money from your pockets. -1 is a must-watch, but I fear, like 1954, it won't be acknowledged or talked about in the masses, especially in America.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Oh my God.
This is what you watch.
So I set you all up with that ending there, because this is what happened when I looked up who this guy was. So there was controversy about this video, of course. That's why I wasn't going over it with you all. So on the 30th of January 2024, Dr. Skipper uploaded the video titled Godzilla Doesn't Work in America, where he discussed the history and the characterization of the titular character. The video saw severe backlash from the Godzilla community, criticizing the video for being too opinionated and poorly researched, with some further accusations that Dr. Skipper made the video to capitalize on the release of Godzilla -1, which Sentry pointed out. Then it goes and says, after 2 days following the upload of the video, Dr. Skipper would make a post on Twitter acknowledging the backlash and criticism, stating that he had made some mistakes and that he would avoid covering franchises and topics he had no attachment to.
In other words, you should not have made that video in the first place.
Right. So he admitted in the end when he got all that shit that like I shouldn't have touched
Even
this.
Dangerfield commented, and Dangerfield said a really good response to it. Like even Rob was impressed by his response.
Okay, I'll have to look at that video.
You have to
It's probably
scroll all
up
the
there
way
somewhere.
down, because Rob was scrolling forever, and then finally one guy decided, you know what? I'm going to save him the trouble. And they managed to scroll all the way down through all the comments. Hey, Odie. Scroll all the way down and finally found that comment. Rob went, okay, I'm actually impressed. He actually said Dangerfield said something good for once.
So any final thoughts on this? Let's start with Sentry.
Misinformation. You know, I'll if he apologized and he said all this shit, well, okay, I'll give him some leeway. But I mean, some of the other shit that he did point out, man, was kind of like directed very poorly, and you know, especially the shit he said about Godzilla not being a character, and then bashing Japan, and yeah, even putting, even adding that even our military, every military is fucked up. But just besides that, man, it's everybody's entitled to their opinion, man. That's all I'm gonna say, bro. I already said my piece on the part of the video, but he contradicted himself so badly at the end of this video that I was just like, yeah, man. And I'm glad like a lot of people gave him shit, I mean. But yeah, dude, it's fuck, bro. I got a little heated and stuff like that, man. But
well, and I accept that, because like I think everyone can agree the biggest grievance is against Honda. Like that was some very bad out of context shit, dude. Like that was really bad.
He literally tried to make him look bad.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Walter,
yeah.
final thoughts, Walter.
Well, let me just add over to what Dan was saying. You know, see, I'm not somebody who's easily triggered when it comes to the Godzilla, you know, everything, kaiju, whatever, you know. But when you misinformation some things, like Mr. Shiro Honda, when he said something about him saying that, you know, he was part of the problem why some of this propaganda, I'm like, dude, okay, I swear, dude, I wanted to reach out and just like, I want to read
Now we fighting.
that's fighting words right there, because I'm just like, dude, if anything I've learned about Mr. Honda, he was a man who's trying to make a world of peace. He was trying to be a kind of a go between this and that, and not make something where it's like, okay, I got to, you know, do this because of this. Yeah, he was forced to do what he had to do, but that's for survival. I get that with that, but on the end, he was somebody who wanted everything to be universal. He wanted peace between everybody. So when you say what you said about him, I'm like, dude, you you better not let my mom come out, because I'll come about and punch your lights out with that shit. You know, that's just it, though. But that's my.
Here comes the elbow drop.
John, final thoughts.
Well, as everyone said, misinformation. I'll admit, I didn't watch it all the way through on the ETN stream. I literally actually put that part on mute because I'm like, I don't care about this because of all the backlash I'm hearing. And some of the stuff I heard, I went, yeah, I don't want to hear any of this. But now watching and listening to this all the way through, I was born 98. This kid was born 2002. I mean, he was a typical Gen Zer just by how he was with everything. Right. I mean, much like Walter and Daniel's criticism, he literally tried to paint a wrong picture on Ishiro Honda, which, of course, I will make sure everyone knows I did not know any of this information about Ishiro Honda until now. So I don't want to think I knew this too.
And that's a funny thing. I didn't either. So I immediately went to go look it up because I was very curious about that. And so when I saw what was written, that the Japanese had taken control of the industry, the military, that like the government forced him to make those videos. And I'm like, well, there you go. That's context. That means this guy at that time had no choice in making these videos.
Yeah, it was that, or he had no film career whatsoever.
Right.
If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have what we had now. And again, the kid was very biased for the most part because he
admitted that, but then he tried to play it off too. He's like, yeah, you know, I enjoyed this one and this one. And
it's like, it's kind of like what Daniel said. He literally just wrote off the coattails of -1. It's like, I'm just going to watch this movie and then badmouth everything else that isn't. He kind of sounded like a Toho extremist almost. Almost, because he was badmouthing all of America's stuff and not giving any crap to Toho, who do the same things. It's kind of like fans during 2014 and 2019 when they complain about how many times they would cut away from battles or from the monster scenes. It's like Toho did the same, and yet not criticizing that. No one criticized them about it when they've been doing it first. And again, it's just like so much misinformation. It's like, kid, do your research before criticizing. And the picture you guys painted too, with him talking about, well, Japan was bad, they were brutal, they were malicious, and all of that. And it's like, so is every other country. Our country's guilty of it. I mean, when we first came in, we literally almost wiped the Native Americans to extinction.
Yeah.
And then also, after 9/11 happened, President Bush, President Obama, we literally were bombing countries that literally did not need to be attacked because we thought Osama bin Laden was there, or it turned out he wasn't there. So
yeah, it's an ugly history with every country when it comes to war, man. It's not a pretty thing, but Japan's not the only one that's done malicious things. We have our own dark history, and so does Europe, Russia, everybody.
It's just like every country's guilty of slavery.
But that's why, yeah. No, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, but I mean, I'm sorry, Anubis. I mean, I usually don't care, what I say and stuff like that, man. But I'm trying to improve on that. But like when I said go back and point out, hey, man, what did he say about Ishiro Honda? I was like, whoa. I was like, no. That struck me really quick. And it did the same to Walter. and it struck me so much because I was like, I've never heard that. That is not true. And then you getting the information and clarifying that was what was like. I mean, I had to sense it for myself, and that's why I asked Walter first, because I do. Obviously, we're all true Godzilla fans, and we got triggered by little things like that he was saying, and we turned them into. We made full explanations on them. And people are gonna be like, God damn, these motherfuckers really nitpick that shit, like little things. But that's what I'm saying. I'm sorry.
What I'm saying is, like, you go from like an opinion on something, so you can have an opinion on Godzilla and the films all day long. I don't care, but now you're kind of attacking a dude's character, and that's really low. Like, that's bad shit right there. But you're misrepresenting this guy in a way that really shouldn't, because everything I've ever heard about Ishido was that he was like great dude, like nothing negative.
But the
so when he came out and said that, I was like, well, let me go check, because sometimes there's shit that I don't know about people. But then when I was reading that, I'm like, oh well, this is bad. This is a bad characterization of this guy. So, but
the funny thing too is that he's talking about how -1 works it, how Godzilla doesn't work in America. It's like, did he not realize most of the income -1 made? Most of those income was from America. Like, Japan didn't even come anywhere close to what America helped make it. So it's like, the thing is, if -1 even got more theater releases in America, it would have blown the doors off of everything, because I think it's unfortunate many people didn't even get to see it. It was only in the theaters for like a month or so. It got a couple extra release weeks, but it didn't expand on theaters. So that's unfortunate. I don't know how that works in terms of, like, does Japan have to pay for that ahead of time, or how that works? But it's unfortunate. If it had half the release that, I think it was like, they got like 1,000 theaters in the US, but when MonsterVerse is out, it's usually like 4,000 theaters. So it's like way, way different. And so I don't know, man. Like, I'm with you guys. Like, I could kind of take just about anything, but I knew when he was going after Honda, I was like, oh boy, you mean Sentry. He's going to confine you to the internet. He just want to make every person in Japan look bad and USA look good. Well, he trashed us pretty good, but like, just some of the stuff he was contradicted himself on, unfortunately, and that's bad. So the backlash, I understand it. Like, he did, like, we all agreed, he had some points, he did do some research, but he didn't do enough. Like, it just didn't really measure up. And then that, again, Honda, that was like the worst take ever for me.
Because I told you before, I told you all these. I mean, Godzilla versus Megalon, yes, is a silly film. Yes, it is ridiculous. It is that. You could talk about that all day. I'll talk about it all day. Do not talk about one of the creators of Godzilla and put that out there like that, because you do not know, man. Because look, as I said, I don't get triggered that easily when it comes to this. But that you have to. That's a line you can't cross. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's why I see two psychiatrists, bro. I got to keep myself in check, or I'll fucking go fucking nuts.
All right. Well, guys, thank you very much for joining me today. It's been a blast. I had a lot of fun. I'll be putting in your YouTube links in my description box, as well as the link to the original video there as well, so people can go check it out and watch it if they want to and they don't want all the commentary. But again, thanks for being here, and thanks to you people that were watching us. Jake, Kevin stopped in for a little bit. I appreciated that. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next time. Subscribe to him. Yeah, subscribe to everybody. Just do it.
Everybody.
This time I got the camera right.
Yeah.
Hey,
subscribe to the dog.
Subscribe to the
dog. See?
Coming in right on cue.
There you go.
All right, you guys hold on. I'm letting everybody else go. So here we go. Later.